all exactly the same content, the same users on all of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just whichever company you like or dislike the least.
Yeah. Well, in the case of Instagram, it's between Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. It's like, well, how much do you hate Facebook because they own everything, and do you trust TikTok? And do you post content on YouTube? That's the sort of equation that you're running. It's, and I mean,
half the videos my daughter watches on YouTube are of it's the YouTube Shorts that are all not time stamped, but user stamped with TikTok on them anyway.
Yeah.
So they're all TikTok videos anyway, just on the Google platform.
Yeah.
Cross-posted from Instagram.
Yeah, exactly that. Because I mean, I remember when Instagram first came out, you were able to post from Instagram to Facebook and to Twitter, I think, but you couldn't post from Facebook to Instagram or from Facebook to Twitter, but you could from Twitter to Facebook. And so I was early days trying to navigate it where I could post content on all of them in the laziest way possible. And I just felt, I was just like, yeah, I can't be bothered with this. It's too much effort. Because
that was where there was a service called If This Then That.
Yeah.
That would allow you to connect everything up, so you could just post one thing to one thing, and it would disseminate out into all the other platforms.
Yeah, I remember that was good up until they decided that we're going to start charging you for all this stuff now, and because it had home automation stuff as well, so you could and geolocation, which was great because I could walk out of my house, get to within a certain zone, and because it was near my office, my phone would automatically go onto silent.
Yep.
And it was like, I don't have to remember to do that. And then suddenly it was like, oh, you now have to pay for this service. I was like, yep, that's getting deleted because I ain't paying for that. It was a great service up until that point. And I'm sure they could have monetized it in different ways, but
well, I think they didn't they bring it down to you can only have something like 2 custom applets or something before you have to start paying. And at that point you just subscribe to a service for 1 or 2 things where you did probably have 10 or 20.
Yeah, but then there's another app called Tasker, which is
I was just about to say it.
Yeah, it's much more advanced, so there's a bigger learning curve to it, but it's free and you can do a lot more with it. And I'm like, well,
that's exactly what I used to. I had NFC tags.
Yeah,
and I had one in the phone holder in my car, one in the phone holder on my desk at work, and one in the phone holder at my desk at home. And when I placed the phone in that thing, it would pick up on the NFC tag and then change all the profiles, change some settings down, and it was nice. That whole thing of all I need to do is just place the phone where it lives, and everything would be taken care of. That automation to
I like that. I like that. That's a nice automation to have. I've got to say, it's I've never really gotten to the NFC tags. It's always been a case of, I can't be bothered faffing about with it. I'm like, I want it to be all from my phone and do it that way. And there's usually a way to do it. With Android especially, it's customizable, so I can just play around with it any way I like. So it's always handy. That's why I like Android.
Well, exactly. You and me both, mate. That was because at the time when I was running that one, the phone was rooted as well. So I could get it to do things like switch the GPS off and things that you could only do with a rooted phone. But that was all run through Tasker, and then the profile was just sent out to the NFC tag.
Yeah.
And it's like you set it all up once, and then in like 18 months when you swap phones and try and remember how you set it up last time, you've completely forgotten all of it.
Yeah, that's the worst.
The NFC tag with your new phone, and it goes, what's this? What do you want to do with this? Damn it.
Yeah, it's the worst, isn't it? I change phones like every 3 to 4 years with my Androids, because I buy the flagship phone knowing I'm going to change it in a few years' time. So as a result of that, whenever I've changed phones, the 2 occasions that I've done it recently, well, I say recently, the last 2 occasions, every time it's like, what are all my passwords? What settings did I have? Trying to replicate everything so it sort of feels the same. And the other thing as well is switching from manufacturers. So I went from HTC to Sony and then to Samsung. So it's 3 different manufacturers and they all have slightly different overlays. Yep. And I'm like, yeah, this doesn't feel right. And it takes me a few months to get used to everything. And then I put everything in widgets and shortcuts. And then I change all my widgets and shortcuts later on. And then I'll be upgrading my phone at some point in the I think it's June next year. So yeah, I've got that.
I use a different launcher on mine.
Okay.
For the same reason. So I set the launcher up, and then you can export that profile for the launcher.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
because I had a phone that I'd use for like all the personal normal stuff, and then a phone that was basically set up as like it had a load of like work profiles on it, and it had a load of things like multi-factor authentication and all the kind of separate passwordy stuff, so that you could do multi-factor authentication and things for various stuff. So I'll use a password manager, so that then it doesn't matter what I'm logged into. I've always got access to the passwords, and then the profile can be the same. I can just export the profile across for that launcher, and then it's
and then it works from there. Yeah,
as easy to transition across as it can be.
Yeah, I tried a launcher on I don't know if you remember the Nexus tablet that they released, this little 6-inch one. Great little tablet. I had a launcher on that, and I tinkered around with it, and it was okay up to a certain point, and I don't think I ever gave it enough time to, and I just didn't play with it enough to really get the most out of it. And since then, I've just never. I was like, I'm not going to use a launcher. I can do everything I need to without them, but I might have to give that another go actually, just to tinker around.
I can't even remember what mine's called now.
I remember there were 2. One was Nova Launcher, and the other one was Apex Launcher. Nova Launcher.
Yeah, Nova is what I'm using. Yeah.
Yeah, they were supposed to. On all the Android websites where you type in the best apps, the best apps to get when you get a new phone, because they change all the time. The Nova Launcher and Apex Launcher were always the 2 best launchers to use. So it was like, which one do you prefer?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah. But yeah, I might have to give it a go at some point. I've got a tablet in my cupboard that I bought thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to use it, and then used it for about 6 months. It ran out of battery, and then I just stopped charging it because.
Yeah, I got a it's one of the Fire HD 8. And I stuck it in the workshop. I got it on a lightning deal a couple of years back, and stuck it in the workshop as it's going to be the automated assistant. And I used it like a handful of times, and then forgot it was there.
Yeah.
And I swapped it out. Black Friday, there was a Google were doing their Home Mini.
Okay.
For like 20 quid or something. So I grabbed another one of those to stick in the workshop, brought the tablet up here, stuck a launcher on it, and then because it's all the Amazon lock-in stuff. And, and again, I've used it like a couple of times, and then gone, oh, it's too old now. It doesn't do anything, and it's now just in my way.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Mine's in the cupboard, and I just left it there, and it's sort of buried under my jeans, and I'm like, right. My jeans no longer fit me either, but I just want them out because I'm determined to get back into them at some point.
Give it another 20 years, you'll get there.
Yeah.
So you could have just said you were too thin for them now. We wouldn't have. Yeah. We wouldn't have known.
No, this is all about honesty with me. You know me. In fairness, everyone listening to the podcast are all friends anyway, so they know that at some point I've eaten 1 too many chocolates and 1 too many pizzas. So
yeah, just the one. Yeah,
just the one.
what was that thing about honesty again?
Yeah. Said one too many. That's the difference. You see.
Yeah, and you didn't mention the rate either. I mean,
Yeah.
one too many per year. That's fine. It's one too many per day. Then that's a different story, isn't it?
More like per meal. Yeah. It's plausible deniability. Plausible deniability. That's the one. Covers a lot of sins, that one.
Yeah, it's all in the phrasing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Jacob in the comments just said per hour. Yeah,
per hour. Yeah. Ooh, pizza per hour. I wonder how long it would take me to get sick of pizza if I had one every hour for a specified amount of time.
See, about 2 days if it was every hour. If it was every waking hour, maybe kind of 4 days.
Possibly,
so I did this as a kind of experiment a few years back. My wife and daughter were going away for a couple of days, so I'd kind of planned to. I'd taken a few days off work as well, and I planned to get a load of projects done.
Yeah.
So, because we tend to get Papa John's around here, and you accumulate points with Papa John's.
Right.
So with so many points, you can then order a pizza using the points. So I combined that with a 2 for Tuesday. So I ended up buying. It was on the Tuesday night. I bought 3 double XL pizzas with the intention of basically just eating that as a meal for that evening, and then eating that for lunch and dinner the following evening, and then same again, and until I ran out of pizza. Because then it meant I didn't have to cook. I didn't have to do anything other than just basically grab some of the food from one of the 3 boxes that was on the couch, and then I could just keep working.
Yeah.
And I got to the end of that few days of eating the same pizzas over and over and over again, and then couldn't even say the word pizza for about 3 months.
So, yeah, I mean, when I lived in Leeds, there was a phase for about 3 or 4 months where every Friday evening I would order what was a family meal deal for one. Basically, it was 2 pizzas, chips, kebab, bottle of Coke, and a garlic bread. So I'd get 2 large pizzas, garlic bread, the whole lot, and I'd space them out because I was working on the weekends as well. So I'd space them out and I'd have it on an evening and then finish it off the following day. So I didn't have to cook that weekend. It's like, great, okay. And then there was one evening where I ate one whole pizza and half of the garlic bread in one sitting, went out, came back, and then ate the other pizza at midnight, woke up the next day feeling a little bit rough, shall we say. And I was just like, yeah, I can't go on like this.
I definitely feel your pain there.
Yeah. So
one advantage of being gluten-free, you can't get big pizzas in gluten-free.
Yeah,
and the price of them, certainly from supermarkets, is stupid.
Yeah,
it's got a bag full of the toppings.
Yeah, that's literally it, isn't it? A bag full of toppings, and then maybe some of the gluten-free
something very dry.
Yeah.
I suppose all you need is some sort of carb to hold it on, don't you? So if you've got like gluten-free wraps or something, then at least you're cutting down on the carbs then as well, and you've got more room for toppings.
Yeah, it's fine. It's finding the problem with gluten holds everything together.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah, it's kind of what it does. So
you just need more cheese.
Well, I mean, there's a thought. Yeah, just kind of have cheese with.
Just put a load of grated cheese in a frying pan so it melts down into like one big crisp.
Yeah,
and then put the toppings on that.
Yeah, maybe. Well, actually, in saying that, you could have the cheese, a wrap cheese, wrap tomato sauce, and then the topping more cheese, and then the tomato sauce. That'd be a stuffed based pizza.
It does sound pretty good, actually. I remember it's no use to me, and it was using American bacon, where it's all long, thin, uniform strips. But someone had like lettuce weaved a load of American bacon together, into like a rectangular sheet, and then put a load of cheese on it, baked it all together, and then rolled it up with a load of fillings in to make this like bacon cheese Swiss roll.
God, that sounds a lot. To be fair,
it
that
looked
sounds
like it hurt.
Yeah, it sounds like something Berkey would do, actually.
It does, yeah.
Mind you, did you see the pizza he made this weekend? Yeah, he posted on various of the socials. Pizza did look nice.
Yeah,
So I think he's had a pizza oven for Christmas or something.
Yeah, did I say he got like is it an Orny pizza oven or something?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah. It looked good anyway. It's something that I looked at. I thought, ooh, I wouldn't mind getting something like that. That'd be good. And then I looked at the price. I was like, maybe I'll skip that.
Yeah, if you have on the sign, yeah. Yeah, I kind of fancy having an outdoor kitchen.
Yeah.
And every time I kind of mention it, it's like the kitchen's like 5 meters from the back door.
Yeah.
Not even that. It's 2 meters from the back door. We don't need an outdoor kitchen.
Yeah.
It's not about needs. It's about wants.
Yeah.
I can't cook with fire in the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
It would taste so much better cooked outside.
Yeah. I mean, there is an appeal. I mean, there's on Pinterest, there are people who have built their own little outdoor kitchen things, and they do look incredible. And I'm like, that'd be really smart to have.
It'd have to be covered up though in the UK, wouldn't it? You know, realistically.
Yeah, you'd need like an automated canopy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the houses in the village, in the centre of the village, you can see into their back garden, especially as they've just had some work done. They've had the garage taken down and rebuilt further back in the garden and 3 times as big. But they've got an outdoor kitchen.
Yeah.
And the thing is, at least 2, if not 3 times the size of my kitchen.
Oh wow!
I mean, it's just huge. There's a big, giant sort of domed pizza oven. Then there's a separate oven. Then there's a space for a barbecue, and there's kind of countertop as well. And it's all stone and brick.
I did say I wanted to do a tandoor at one point, just for the hell of it. But I never got around to it.
Yeah, I mean, you can get the tandoors quite easily. Because everywhere you look now, there's places that do tandoori rotis and all the rest of it, and it's like, they're fairly easy to get. They're not hard. I think we actually have one somewhere in the house. I just don't know where.
This is when we were because we were discussing that, you know, like building a pizza oven out back and all that kind of thing. We were trying to work out, you know, the efficiency of having, you know, a separate fire pit and then having a tandoor and then having a pizza oven, and whether there's a way of like combining those things together, or so you can't really burn rubbish in a tandoor or a pizza oven, so you'd want them separate anyway. Could you do the pizza oven over the top of the tandoor, maybe, you know, if you bury the tandoor?
You could, in theory you could, but you would need to be able to lift or slide the pizza oven on and off to be able to do it. You
couldn't use them at the same time, I don't think. I mean,
I reckon.
Would you want to make a naan and a pizza at the same time, or would you just turn one into the other?
I mean, they're not too dissimilar, realistically.
I'm sure I've seen that where somebody had a domed pizza oven.
Yeah,
and it was it's one of these ones that was silly hot, and they had flat for the pizza, and they literally had the naans slapped on the dome.
Yeah, that would work. Yeah, it's because that's how they're made, basically. I mean, you can make the naans in a pizza oven as well. That it would do. There isn't a huge amount of difference between them.
It's just hot thermal mass, isn't it? That's all you need. It's just hot rock.
Yeah, exactly that. You just need something hot enough to cook. I mean, the way my grandma and stepmom do it is, whenever they make naan breads, they'll always do it on a flat piece of, I want to say it's cast steel, but it could just be cast iron. But I mean, it weighs a canny amount, and it's about 3 or 4 mil thick. Similar to the Welsh cake thing that you mentioned before, Andy.
Yeah.
It's a similar sort of thing.
Like a bake stone.
Yeah. My granddad got it from someone who worked at British Steel back in the early 80s or something. So it was a scrap piece of steel that he just welded a handle to it. You can see the weld. I
can imagine that's absolutely beautifully seasoned now as well.
Oh, it's been around ever since I was a little kid, so it's at least 30 years old, if not older. So yeah, it's had its fair share of use, and just don't drop it on yourself because it will hurt.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah, and if it's cast iron, it's likely to crack. So hopefully it's cast steel, and then it's less likely to crack. It'll just break your toes.
Crack whatever it lands on.
It'll just crack whatever it lands on. Yeah, that's it. Whenever anyone comes around and sees it, they're all like, "Oh, to my grandma, where did you get that from?" type of thing. Because the ones that you can get now are really thin. They're either really thin spun steel or just a thin aluminium. Whereas this is like a heavy grade 3 mil thick. You can, it's the type of thing that you'd want if a burglar came into the kitchen and you need to clonk him on the head with it. Like, you see in those cartoons. Yeah. It's like, I cracked him in the head with a frying pan. Oh, so why is his head exploded? It's that frying pan.
Did you see that there was a thing on Reddit earlier with some ridiculous cast iron, or it looked like a cast iron skillet type thing from the States, but it was something like 11,000 pounds worth in weight. It was meters in diameter. Yeah. Some world record. Delivered on the back of a truck.
Yeah. Didn't see that. That sounds impressive. I mean,
it's a new world record or something.
Yeah, but just to get that across the country, like however from point A to point B, how the making
something that big.
Yeah,
I mean that's one hell of a mold.
Yeah,
because even it's cast iron, so in the process of casting iron, it's not that difficult.
No,
you'd have to do it in one pour. So that's a huge.
Yeah,
that's a huge pour in one go.
I mean,
although I suspect probably on an industrial scale, it's probably just kind of average, isn't it?
Yeah.
But normally it would not be one item; it would be kind of multiple items.
Yeah, I mean, the casting place that's in Middlesbrough, I went to visit them just before the lockdown started, and what they'd said was that casting now isn't really a sort of batch scale production line type of thing. It's more bespoke custom pieces where their benefits are. So they'll make the mold out of foam or some high density foam that's done, put it into the sand and then just cast it all that way. I mean, it's a really interesting process that they were showing, and then they'll refine it with an angle grinder, basically. So yeah,
it's come a long way from hand files, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think there is still a little bit of hand filing to finesse it and whatever else, but majority of it is angle grinder and Dremel tool with the things that I noticed. And yeah, cast iron, aluminium, and brass were the sort of things that they primarily work with. And some of the stuff that they were making was just like, whoa!
Like the mental images there that I've got there are the two polar opposite YouTube channels of Clickspring on one side, with the super fine, finessed, beautiful manufacturing, and then Michael Cthulhu on the other, with massive 60-kilo plates of hard ox that he's attacking with an angle grinder or a flame torch, or where divergent goes in opposite directions.
Yeah, it is, but I think the process, the thought process between the two, if you boil it down, you would think they'd probably be very similar as well.
Absolutely,
It's
a matter of scale. Working with, I've never worked on the huge metal projects, but I've worked with silver jewelry, and essentially the techniques are exactly the same.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of scale, whether you're using a Dremel with a cut-off blade, or whether you're using a 9-inch angle grinder, or whether you're using a jeweler's saw, or whether you're using a mechanical hacksaw. the processes are exactly the same. It's just a matter of scale.
Yeah, exactly that. And again, material as well. In some cases, scale. Just because it's bigger doesn't necessarily mean it's more expensive, because cast iron's relatively cheap, whereas gold is a lot. It's not. It's anything but. So my friend's dad is a jeweler, and he makes a lot of the pieces himself. So one of the things he was saying to his son was, literally, we have to be so efficient with how we operate, because, and he was pointing at all the dust on the work surface, and he was like, that's money, right? It literally that. And I was like, oh, it's
jewelers tend to have a skin underneath the saw and the peg, so when they're filing or sawing, all the dust gets collected on there. And you, like you say, you keep it, and then you melt it back down.
Recast it. So just noticed Andy's asked some questions about the makerspace.
We haven't even introduced you yet. We're still kind of the preamble.
It's 26 minutes in. We've got another half an hour before we need to introduce you.
I mean, did we do introductions? Do we need
we do. We have done introductions about 3 times, I think it is now. Generally for people who aren't content creators on a grand scale or first time podcasts.
This is true. This is the
first time podcast for you as well, is it not?
It is, yeah. It is a first time podcast. So, thank you guys for inviting me on. It's
the only way is up from here.
Well, I was going to say this may well be your lowest rated episode, so I'm just. I apologise in advance for that.
Every single person who has said that in the kind of sort of chats beforehand has either been, we've had huge viewings, or it's been the longest part. I don't know if I could talk for half an hour. I'll come on, it might be half an hour, and then maybe 45 minutes. I'll see if I can stretch to an hour. I don't think I've got anything to say, and then like 2.5 hours later, you're still going strong.
There's one of those in the comments section already.
Yeah.
Yes, Miss Claire Crafty Corner. I did notice her scrolling past.
It's got we've got a good outing tonight in the comments. We've got quite a few people, and quite a few people. Hopefully, at some point this year, we'll have on as well. We've got a couple of previous guests like Claire and Lindsay, and Dave Bauer. But hopefully, there's a few that haven't had on yet, like JP and Dale, and who else was there? I noticed. There's a couple of others. I won't go back to
now. Have you started to name them all?
I'm not going to start naming them all. Yeah,
you might miss one.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I don't want to do. That's what I don't want to do. So
ever the teacher, Andy.
So hopefully a few more people on this year. We're only 3 weeks into January, so there's still another 40 odd weeks to go. So hopefully,
I can't believe it's 2021 already.
Yeah.
I
mean, what happened to 2020? It's like
it does feel like. It does feel like Jamie and I were chatting earlier with others about Maker Central, and it's just like, the last one was 2019. It's going to feel like when we get there, it's going to feel like kind of, is this 2020?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was looking back on some of my posts on Facebook, and some of them were about Maker Central in 2019, and I remember because I was working that weekend doing overtime whilst Maker Central was on, and a fellow called Jim Black from Woodworking UK was live streaming a lot of it. And I was like looking at it all, and I was just like, I've got to. I just sat behind my desk at work, and I'm like with my coffee, looking at all this. I'm like, I should have just went. Major FOMO. But I continued to watch because, self-mutilation and all that.
Live vicariously through other people.
Exactly. And Jim's a good person to live through. He's good people.
Yeah, he is.
So we probably should do a bit of an introduction. Okay. Because I think, as I put in the Instagram adverts, you're a name that crops up in several parts of the maker community. You know, I've seen Woodworking UK is one, and a couple of others where it comes up. You're the only,
quite often
you're the only other Europe.
You'd see Andy Pugh and then you right next to him on the. By the time I get around to liking someone's post, you two are always there.
That's just Facebook, and it's telling you. You know, that's because we're friends on Facebook, so it'll show you. Yeah, it'll show you the people that you're friends with first, obviously. So that's all.
Yeah, Fools of Tools and kind of other places as well. You're the only other European on the Makers on Zoom having coffee Discord.
Yeah,
alongside myself.
Yeah, I think did Sean in the Shed joined in as well, didn't he? Recently.
Oh yes, he has. Yes, that makes three of us now. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yes, he's been quiet though, isn't he? He's been quiet. He needs to speak up a bit more. Otherwise,
good save.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. There's a moderator that keeps an eye on kind of activity levels. If it's not high enough, they get kicked out.
Yes, that moderator is very strict. He could be a teacher in a formal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned Woodworking UK because that was my kind of entry point into the maker world, more or less. That was the very first group I joined where I got a sense of this community, and then from that I got introduced to the podcast that Gosforth Handyman and Peter Millard did. Measuring Up. Couldn't remember the name for a second.
I was trying to rack my brains as well then.
Yeah. And I started listening to it because I thought, you know what, Andy's from Newcastle, Peter's from London, both UK-based makers. They had interesting channels and I'd learned quite a bit from them already. Thought, give them a listen. Started listening to them, and then they mentioned this random podcast, Fools with Tools, and Andy mentioned that it was a great podcast and it was just getting started, not realizing that I was actually catching up. So he'd mentioned this way before, so by the time I got into Fools with Tools they were 30 odd episodes in, and
I've never heard of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to pay commission again this week, won't we?
Yeah. It's so then started listening to those guys. They mentioned the Facebook group, joined the Facebook group and put a few posts in, and
then it all went downhill.
Yeah, well, no, it gets better. So then they mentioned that they were on Makers International. So Makers International, I started listening to and realised that they had a live show on a Sunday. And I didn't feel right jumping into the live show whilst I was playing catch up. So I caught up to all the podcasts, joined in on the live show.
That would have taken a while because Makers International at that point had been going longer than the other two combined.
It was 2019, so it was sort of 2018 to 2019, around about that time, and that's when I ended up in the live chat and got introduced to Andy and all these other guys who, they're all in the chat at the moment, actually. And and suddenly I'm chatting away to people like they're friends, and Red introduced Text Tuesday, and so I started messaging people, seeing how they were getting on, and again that just led to more friendships. And then lockdown happened, and Morley started Makers on Zoom having coffee. So I thought, oh, this sounds like fun. It'll be a good little hangout for an hour or so. And nearly 2 years later, it's a weekly thing, and there's a Discord and chatting to these guys, and it's crazy. It's
a daily input. It's kind
daily
of like
input, and I look back to where I started and the type and the person I was back then. I mean, I was miserable. I was miserable, but I was also in like the heights of depression and anxiety with massive psychological health issues, which I still have, and I still have anxiety, I still have depression, I still have all those things. But being involved in this world, it's a lot easier to manage, and there's
a lot more of us sharing the same experiences, I think.
Yeah, that was it. And I mean, I talked about how making stuff and woodworking helped my mental health because it was almost like a meditation. And the reception I got to those posts on Facebook, bearing in mind my experience of Facebook up to that point, was I'm going to probably leave it. It's like, I don't need it. It's just not interesting to me anymore. There's no one on there that, like, anyone I want to speak to, I've got their phone numbers. So I don't really need it. And I was going to delete it. But being involved with Woodworking UK and then Fools with Tools and Makers International and everything else, and suddenly Facebook has gone from this awful place to a place of refuge almost, because I can just interact with people and they show incredible content. Like, I mean, just today, I think it was Heidi who posted something in Fools with Tools, the mechanical sculpture things. And I looked at that and I was like, oh, wow, that's incredible. That is just incredible. And the attention to detail, and I see that type of stuff, and it's like, it clicks in my brain, and I'm like, ooh, I wonder how he did that. And suddenly it's not like, it's not about Karen who's saying how certain people shouldn't be in the country. It's like, how did he do that? I don't care about Karen. I care about this. And it's much more it's a much more enjoyable place to be. And I prefer that. And like I say, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, I think it's the approachability of it as well, as the fact that, you know, you can reach out to one of those people and go, hey, that's cool. How did you do that?
Yeah.
And they'll go, oh, hi, here's how I did that. Rather than just being, like you say, this wall of shit constantly.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
interaction.
Interestingly, it was on Instagram, and I mentioned, he's in the chat now, actually, Steve, from Fools with Tools, and I just dropped it. I thought, you know what, I'll drop him a message and say that I'm really enjoying the podcast. Didn't think he was going to reply. I thought, you know, he's not going to reply, it's fine. Just going to send some positivity out into the world. And I got a response back, and he was like, oh, sorry about the audio quality, it gets better. And I was like, oh, that's...
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. When his internet's okay.
Hey, we've been working on it for years. He's got good internet, and they've even got good microphones now as well.
Oh,
I can't take credit for the microphones, but I did badger the crap out of him to get his internet.
Yeah, so, but, I mean, that's kind of how I got there. But, I mean, outside of the maker community, I was working in law and then made a transition over to engineering, and part of the reason I was able to go into that with the confidence I did was because of being involved with Woodworking UK, where I asked the question and a load of people just said, oh yeah, I'm this old and I changed careers and this, that and the other. And I was like, well, that gives me a little bit more confidence because I could hear that real world experience as well, and it made it interesting. Of course, my timing was terrible because I picked a 2-year course that started in 2018, finished in 2020.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't choose our own timing.
Yeah. The whole cultural shift, you know, especially in recent decades, especially the fact that it is so approachable now to do that kind of thing of oh, you know, I've been in this industry for 10 years, I think I might retrain over the course of a couple of years and then switch to a completely different unrelated industry. Is, you know, I think that really lends itself to the way a lot of makers think as well. You know, it's like, oh, new skill, let's play with the new toys, you know, that kind of thing.
It's, I mean, for me, I never saw myself doing anything other than law. And don't get me wrong, the law is still something that I find incredibly fascinating. It's intricate, it's puzzling, it's it's all the things that it has a lot of similarities to engineering from the problem solving standpoint.
Yeah.
However, working in law is just, it's soul destroying. Whereas when I started playing about with stuff, making a fence out of pallet wood in the garage and a shoe cabinet out of plywood, I was like, oh, this is fun. I used to enjoy doing this at school. I used to enjoy this type of thing. And just sort of certain things led me down to it. And I was like, oh, well, I can do this course and I can move into engineering. And it, okay, granted, timing sucked, but at the same time,
it's now 2 potential career paths, isn't it? If we get out of the fuzz that we're all in at the minute, and one is more, because I mean that's sort of where I'm at. I've been running kind of 2 careers at the same time, but it gives that kind of option to fall back on one or the other. Or I'm very fortunate where I'm at now is kind of a mix of both of those things. It's like engineering and IT kind of thing that I can do on both, but it is that kind of, it's that opportunity then to switch to one or the other. You've got that legal fallback if you need it.
Exactly.
But you can still pursue the thing you want to do.
And I mean, funnily enough, I had a conversation with a recruiter and they were saying to me, oh, so what have you been doing for the past 2 years? You haven't been working in law. It's like, well, I was working evenings whilst I did an engineering course. And, oh, so what type of things did you do in engineering? Oh, someone asked me to prototype a pocket satellite. What's one of those? It's a thing that goes into space. It's going to carry a satellite. And they were like, wait, that's a bit of a difference from law. I was like, yeah, it was fun though. And it was just like a really flippant comment. And I was like, wait, I was prototyping a satellite that's going to go into space. I was playing around with it, figuring out how to do it. And I actually knew how to do it up until the pandemic kicked in and I no longer had access to the machinery that was at the college. So it was like, well, I can't do that now. So, whatever. But having this conversation with the recruiter and they were like, oh, so would you go back to law? I was like, well, yeah, I will. But these are the things that I would want in place. They weren't unreasonable requests. It was just like, give me career progression and don't treat me like a terrible, don't treat me like crap, basically. Just
human decency for any workplace. And
I want a law firm with a workshop in the basement.
No, that would be fun. And they were like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll see what we can do. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And they were like, so you won't do anything else? And I was like, no, well, why would I? I mean, I just told you I've got enough to go into engineering and I was building something that's going to go into space. Like, what, I have 2 options. And they were like, oh, I don't think many firms would want that. And I was like, well, if they don't, that's their problem, not mine. And I was like, what do you want me to say to that? Like, oh, sorry, I qualified in another field because I couldn't find work in law at the time. So I decided to change direction and pick a different field, which is not it's not exactly an easy field to be in, but I picked it.
It's more satisfying, maybe, or satisfying in a different way.
It's different skills, different experiences, and cutting metal with fire is fun. It's like,
it's a damn sight more fun than writing a load of papers.
Cutting metal with fire, being screamed at by a client because he'd done something wrong. Really hard choice there.
Tough call, cause
Dale's just made a suggestion in the comments that you might be perfectly qualified to take up health and safety legislation now.
Oh God.
Well, that must be on the back of the masochism from earlier.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, that's that. There is that. I mean, intellectual property would be the area of law that I'm quite interested in because I find it's as close to related to engineering as anything else, and
linked to it definitely.
Yeah. Weirdly, I understand half of the stuff that they talk about in patent law now because of engineering. I know that, so I know a bit more about patent law as a subsequent result, and it's just a case of marrying the two together. But we'll see. I mean, like I say, we'll see how it plays out. At the moment, I'm just waiting for companies to call me back and say, yes, we'll put you through your engineering degree with great pleasure. Yes.
Failing that, when we finally get that maker commune, you'll be the IP lawyer for all the crazy mad cat ideas that everyone kind of comes to you with.
Yeah.
We want to make this product in the maker commune.
Yeah. How do I protect it? Just don't tell anybody about it. That's the best way to protect it.
Stop uploading that YouTube video.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
Yeah.
And how can we do it safely? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or somebody just got hurt.
Yeah. No. I'm going to shift the blame to someone else, though. That's a first aider's job.
Andy asked about makerspaces. So, yeah. I obviously I know perhaps a little bit more than other folk around about kind of your involvement in makerspace, but you've been involved with the makerspace for quite some time. Do you want to sort of tell us about how you got how did you find that makerspace first of all, and kind of roughly where does that fit in the timeline?
So this is
obviously Andy wants to know kind of are you still able to go and things?
Yeah, so this goes another potential commission payment here for the podcast about that Jamie has a sign above his head about. Al mentioned it in one of the episodes early on, and I was like, oh, I wonder if there's one in Teesside. I wonder if there's one in Middlesbrough. So I was at work, and I was like, Middlesbrough Hackspace, and tried to find it. Had no luck finding it at all. This was sort of just winter 2018, around about that time. And I was like, right, can't find it, doesn't matter, just ignore it. And then a few weeks later, Nissan had an open evening for students and apprenticeships and whatever else. So I was in the car driving along. I took the day off work for it as well, so it was like I had the time. And on the way back, I was like, right, I'm determined to find this this hack space, this makerspace, whatever it may be. I had my sat nav on anyway because it was all hooked up. So pulled over, put in the postcode for the hack space, and found it. Walked in, and there's about 4 or 5 guys in there. It was like this little sort of workshop thing. Couldn't have been much bigger than, I don't know, maybe 4 meters by 9 meters, if that. And they had like 3D printers, a couple of workbenches. That was about it. Really small space. And I got chatting to the guys, and almost immediately as we started chatting, it just clicked, and I was like, I want to be involved with this. This is going to be fun. This is going to be interesting. There's skills. There'll be members here who I can learn from. There'll be other skills that I can pick up, and there's equipment here that I don't have and I can experiment with. So that same night, I was like, right, as soon as I get home, I'm going to sign up and pay whatever it is, and I'll join in. Did exactly. So I got the fob straight away because the guy who runs it, Jim, assigned the fob to me straight away. So I was like, right, okay, that's fine. Cracked on. And at the same time, because I was working and at college, finding time to be in there was difficult because I had a fairly full schedule. Full-time work and full-time college. It was a lot to do, and so I didn't get into there as much. But a couple of weeks after I joined, this was again 2019. A couple of weeks later, they moved space because the landlord of the existing the unit at the time actually then offered them a bigger space for the same price because he was having trouble renting it out. He was like, look, I'll do you a deal, you can do this for however long, and then, you know, goes up to that amount. So it was like, well, it's the same price, it's a bigger unit, let's do it. Moved across to that space, and that's when I started getting more involved, because when we moved over, there was a bit of work to do. So I'd just pop in every now and again to help tidy things up here and there, run a few network cables, patch a few points wherever I could. And then we started doing movie nights at the Hackspace. Just random, you know, it's more social stuff. And it was like, yeah, we'll do that. And gradually numbers were building up. And then the pandemic hit. In that time, I started learning 3D printing as well, and sort of made my first few 3D prints. Then the pandemic hit, and we had to close the space down. So for majority of 2020, the space was shut down, not able to use it. It was minimal use. And then I want to say just after summer of last year, one of the guys was like, look, we need to restart the open nights. So I'm going to be there on a Tuesday, and I'm going to open up and I'm going to start introducing members and all the rest of it. I was like, well, you know what? I live really close by. I'm free on a Tuesday night. I'm going to come down as well. And that's what I started doing. So every Tuesday I've been going down to the Hackspace and basically hosting the open nights, opening up, making sure that anyone who comes in is feeling welcomed and asking them questions. And Lindsay was helpful in offering some suggestions for questions as well, which was good. Thanks to the episode you guys had about.
I'm guessing stuff like, you know, what you're working on, what your interests, not you know,
yes,
torch in the face, you know,
yeah,
to a chair.
Yeah, that.
Where were you on this night?
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, I think that might be. We'll save that for, you know, when they're a bit more comfortable. Then we can have that.
week 3, you'll be fine.
Yeah, week 3. And it's been really interesting because I've had the opportunity to speak to loads of different people from different backgrounds, and some of them are just, you know, there's a little kid who wants to start 3D modeling and 3D printing. Nice. And then there's a gentleman who's just retired who makes CNC machines for fun.
Cool.
And I'm like,
as you do.
Yeah, as you do. And I'm like, he would be an asset to this space, and that little kid's the future of this space. You know, we have the luxury of being able to say, yeah, anyone who's welcome. You know, anyone who wants to be involved can come along and get involved. And the space grows as the membership grows. So if someone turns around and says, oh, you know, I want to learn how to make jewelry or metal sculptures. Okay, let's figure out a way how we can accommodate that. Let's find some space for that. Let's see what we can do. If that's what you want to do in the space, let's see what we can do. And, you know, eventually we'll grow out of this space and into another one. And maybe one day we'll be able to do something like what the STEAM project does in Canada, where they offer classes for kids in the holidays. I mean, that'd be great, because it would mean you could take a group of kids, give them a project in the first set of half-term holidays or whatever, and then let them just see it through over the course of the entire year, or not even just the start of the year, just all the way through, from different projects each year. As they get more involved and they get more confident, being able to do something like that would be great. And as a result of the Hackspace, I was then volunteering at a school with a Martian greenhouse project.
Nice.
with the Aldrin Foundation, and I'm there talking to these little year 7 kids who are 11 and 12 years old, and they have so much passion. I'm like, yeah, this would be great to be able to do that in the hackspace as well. And the membership, the guys who were running it as well, they all feel the same way. So we all have this. Just saw Steve's message. Yeah, we all have this shared goal of making the hackspace this space where anyone can come along to build whatever they want, but also inspire the next generation into STEM without actually going to external sources with our cap in hand saying, give us money. We're able to do it through the passion of our own members. And that's, I think fantastic. That it's, yeah, I mean, it's unsustainable right now, but
I was going to ask, is that just on that specific point there, is that a conscious decision not to kind of look for external funding, or is that a kind of just something that's just not happened either through lack of knowledge of external funding routes or the like?
It's a bit, I think it's a bit of both. So I've looked at some sources of external funding and put the idea into, put the idea across, but at the same time, the focus is spending our time on marketing the Hackspace to members because it's run by membership. So getting more members in is a much more sustainable way of funding the space. Whereas relying on funding from external sources, it's a lottery. Sometimes you'll be successful, sometimes you won't. And yeah, it'll be nice if we could, if the Art Council turns around and says, yeah, here's a couple of grand, do what you want with it. Great. But quite often when it comes to funding, there's going to be strings attached.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we want to avoid, because by being self-directed, we determine our own destiny without the involvement of the local authority saying, oh, you have to do this, and the Art Council saying, you need to do this project for us, or whatever it may be. It's, well, we can do whatever we want because we don't owe anyone anything. And because...
I would say it's worth perhaps not kind of turning external funding as an option aside totally. I mean, as someone who's kind of in the past had to or looked to access external funding and had external funding for projects, sometimes the strings attached are quite easy to achieve. Maybe this has to be offered to, say, young people of a certain demographic. You need to kind of whether it's for example in schools, it might be a case of like pupils on pupil premium scheme or free school meals, or like there has to be kind of a certain percentage that have to be offered to that, and those are quite often the people you want to access anyway. So actually, when you somebody says we want to make sure of this, and you kind of go, well, yeah, that's what we want to do. So no problem at all. I mean, but you're right. Sometimes the strings are kind of burdensome, and aren't worth it. I've certainly seen a few kind of cases like that in the past where I can't recall examples off the top of my head, and I wouldn't anyway. But where they say, right, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And you think, well, X is okay, Y is okay, but Z, this isn't going to happen. So it's not going to be there. And sometimes it's literally the string is, we want this recorded in some way. We want there to be a record kept of not just how many people turned up, how many people have had access to it, but we want to kind of sort of see some physical outcome in the end. And of course that can be tricky, but there can be benefits. I mean, you mentioned Nissan earlier. Reach out to Nissan and go, got any older ladies going, or got any?
Well, funny you mentioned that. A lot of the equipment that is in the space is donated from companies who are planning to throw them out anyway.
Yeah.
or members have bought them, don't have the space at home, and have just thought, oh, it'll go in the hack space and people can use it. And I've considered, when I've been browsing eBay auctions, there's been a few pieces of kit where I've been like, do we have space for this? No, we don't. We don't have space for a Bridgeport and a lathe and, whatever else. It's like, oh man, wish we had space. But that's the thing. When it comes to buying equipment, we've got to be careful with how we buy the equipment, because ultimately we are limited in space. We already have a lathe in this space at the moment, so buying another one, it would be like, okay, yeah, it's a big big full geared lathe, and it's going to do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. But at the same time, it also takes up the entire footprint of the garage, so it's a little bit unpractical because it limits what anyone else can do.
Yeah.
And but as you were saying, we don't discount the external funding. It's just a case of being a little bit careful with it. But also the guys who are running the space are actually, they work full time. So, and they have families and kids and all the rest of it. So often the makerspace stuff or the hackspace stuff is, legitimately it's just deprioritized. It's not that it's not important. It's just there are more important things ahead of it. So it's and that's absolutely fine. I started looking into the Art Council funding because I walked past a shop in the high street. Well, not in the high street, in the shopping centre. And there was like an art stuff in there, and I occasionally pop in and started having a browse. And this artist decided to say to me, "Oh, have you got any rubbish I can have?" I was like, "Rubbish? What? What are you talking about? Did I hear that right?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm doing a project with rubbish." I was like, "Oh, okay. I know a place where there's plenty of rubbish and you can take as much as you like." From the Teesside Hackspace, told her a bit about it, and I was like, "Look, I've got time a bit later on. I can take you down, and you can have your fill of whatever's scrap and whatever else." She wound up taking away a full bag of PLA, like scrap PLA, and decided to use it for her art project, and she was incredibly grateful. And I was like, "That's that works. I'm happy with that." I was like, "Look, if you ever need any more, drop me a message on Instagram or whatever, and you can have your fill. It's great." And she told me about the Art Council. So I got in touch with the Art Council and asked them what their parameters are for funding and what rounds they have, and then referred it over to the guys who would make the application. And I think they're in the middle of that application. But the Art Council offers a canny amount of funding in some cases. Like, it's not a small amount of money. And there's a certain limit, and even that limit is pretty high for what you can. Like, basically, there's a set limit, and then above that limit, there's more checks to do. Yeah. But before that limit, it's like, take whatever you want. And that upper limit is, I think if I remember rightly, it was like $100,000 or something ridiculous, where up to that amount, you can do whatever you want with it, basically. There's no checks. Whereas above that amount, there's a few more checks.
And a lot of paperwork, I imagine, as well.
And a lot of paperwork, that's it. So it's, like I say, I'll look into things and I'll pass the information on, and then, because I'm not a trustee with this space, that responsibility is with other people. So it's like, well, whatever's there, whatever I find, I'll pass on, and then if they think it's worth doing, they'll do it. But at the same time, whenever I interact with anyone who I think may be able to donate machines and equipment, I'm like, hey, if you want to get rid of anything, send it to us. If you're throwing it out anyway, we'll probably be able to repair it. Because between us, there's There's at least two electrical engineers. There's a software engineer. There's myself. There's a fabricator. There's the guy who makes CNCs. Between us, I think we have the skills to repair most machinery, I would have thought. So it's like, you know what? If you're going to throw something out, we'll take that and see how it goes. Worst case scenario, we're the ones who have to get rid of it.
Or it's a great STEM project for some kids who want to know how a big bit of machinery works. Or it's a great teaching tool then. Or
exactly. And it takes up space, and someone gets annoyed when they walk into it in the dark.
True. Does have its downsides.
Yeah, not that anyone's walked into a massive arcade machine in the garage.
Sounds like a good project to me. Yeah, get an arcade machine working.
Yeah, I think it just appeared there one day, and I was like, "What the f is this doing? Like, where did that come from?" It's not a
Jumanji one, is it? Yeah.
I don't think it. No, well, I don't know.
Or Tron.
I mean, it's appeared through a black hole because the only people who have the ability to transport that machine, I've asked them and they don't know who it belongs to because they're the only ones with a van. So I'm like, the only other person has a little Kia Picanto, and I'm like, if he managed to transport that arcade machine in a Kia Picanto, then we need to figure out how he did that, because that's some Time Lord level TARDIS stuff, man.
Either that, or there's some dudes who've cleared out a pub and they've just dropped it off on their way past and just thought like a charity shop. I'll leave it out by the door and someone will take it in.
Yeah. They'd have heard somebody saying, "If you got any rubbish, if you got any machines you want to get rid of."
Yeah. So someone's heard me say the address that I can never remember.
This is going to cost us 50
where it
quid
was.
To dispose of.
Yeah. That's it. But either way, there's a 65-inch TV, but the screen's actually been removed, and someone's actually working on that project right now. So I know that started off there, and I was like, oh, that'd be good for movie nights at some point, or playing Xbox or whatever we do. And then the screen was taken out and it was on the floor, and I was like, oh, okay, that's that idea out the window then. Someone wasn't donating a 65-inch TV to us.
Or maybe they were and it just didn't work, and now it's being fixed, and therefore it will become the...
Yes, but just to circle back to Andy's question, yes, the hack space is now back open, and we are, utilizing the space again. So
hey,
yeah.
So what's the kind of opening hours for your hack space? Because I know it varies massively from place to place. Not that there's a huge number in the UK, but
so I was.
Go on.
So I was just going to say ours is 24 hours. I was looking around for my wallet that has my little NFC tag in it, but it's literally maglock, swipe the NFC tag, and you can walk in as and when you like, basically. The only rule is don't set the place on fire and don't sleep in there. It's like fairly reasonable. You can go in whenever you want, just don't spend the night in there. In fairness, it's very cold, and the sofas aren't that comfortable to sleep on. So it probably isn't a good idea. But
and you can't start a fire. You can't start a fire to warm up either.
And you can't
against the rule.
Yes. However, there was a fire. A fire did break out somehow in the roof because of some. It was the only instance of spontaneous combustion that I've ever heard of. But something combusted in the roof. It just caused a fire, and the ceiling tiles fell apart and destroyed the networking cables that were over that way. No idea how it happened. But someone was on hand to actually put the fire out, fortunately. So it didn't get, it wasn't as disastrous as it could have been. But yeah, we do always say, don't set the place on fire, don't blow the space up, because some of the projects, there are some madcap inventors in there, and there's a strong possibility that someone is going to do something that blows up or causes a fire. So for that reason, like the woodworking shop is well away from the garage, which is where all welding and lasering stuff is, just so we don't set anything on fire. because that's
seems sensible.
You would think so, yeah. I mean, one, we don't own the building. Two, there's another building next door to the building, so if there is a fire, there's at least 4 buildings that will be wiped out in that sort of area, dependent on the rate of transmission and how quickly it, how much more fuel there is in those other buildings. So it's it could be disastrous. But as I say, it's not the biggest space in the world, and it's not, we don't have all the fancy toys, but...
Well, you just mentioned laser.
Yeah,
that's a fairly fancy toy, and you've mentioned 3D printers, and you've mentioned lathe. I think you mentioned engineering lathe.
Engineering lathe, yes. It's engineering lathe.
I mean, there's 3 fairly fancy tools.
Yeah, I mean, the lasers are... So we've got 2 lasers. One of them doesn't work anymore. The other one does work, but it's temperamental. And then the 3D... Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much the case with all the machines in there. They're all temperamental. The 3D printers are just Ender 3s. So pretty good. I mean, they're good quality printers, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it's a staple of most makerspaces.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you look at the Ender 3 versus, the price of an Ender 3 versus the price of, say, I don't know, like a Prusa, for example, or a step up from the Prusa, an Ultimaker, there's
an order of magnitude, essentially.
Yeah, exactly that. So it's the 3D printer isn't anything. It's a standard 3D printer, and a very accessible 3D printer, which I think makes it more appealing, because someone could go in and be like, "Oh, how much do those things cost?" You can pick them up for under £200.
Yeah.
And
but it's also the benefit of them being so cheap to repair and replace as well.
Yes.
In a shared communal space.
Yeah, exactly. And the lathe is a donation from one of the members who bought it on Gumtree. Didn't have space in his garage for it, and it's also broken. So he's been in the process of fixing that since he got it in sort of summer 2019-ish, there or thereabouts. And because I'm the one with the experience of machining because of college, I'm the one who did the safety brief on it and will be doing the introductions on it. But he's the one fixing it, because I don't know how to fix it, because it's his machine and I haven't. It's like, because it's his machine that he has loaned to the Hackspace. So it's like, I don't really want to try and repair it, because if I make it worse, that's someone else's machine. So I've taken the view that it's probably better to let him do it, because he is in the process of doing it. So it's fine. We're not in any rush for it. So, I don't need to do anything more with it. And that's kind of the approach I've taken with a lot of the equipment. It's like, if it belongs to the space, then I'm happy to try and fix it and let everyone know I'm trying to fix it. But if it doesn't belong to the space and it belongs to someone else, I'm going to leave that responsibility to the person who owns it, just because I feel like I would be stepping on someone's toes if I tried to faff about with it. And it's probably better to do that, because at least then I can't be accused of the one who broke it in the first place. Which, is...
it sucks if you break your own thing, but if somebody else breaks it, particularly if they're trying to fix it and they make it worse, then that probably sucks more in some ways.
Yeah, exactly that. And you also, if 2 people are trying to fix the same problem, and one person tries a solution and makes it worse, and then repairs that solution that made it worse and has sort of crossed that off the list, but then person B goes along and tries that same solution and makes it worse again, but doesn't know the fix to repair that solution, then that's just been done twice. So it's, potentially adds more work to the repair. So it's probably better to leave it as that and just sort of say, let the person who's sort of taken responsibility to repair it, and then we'll go on from there. But as I say, hopefully we can grow. We're back to a growth level that we were pre-pandemic. So
that's good.
That means we are on track to be self-sufficient soon, which will be nice because
fantastic.
It'll mean that any extra money can then be put back into the space and allow us to, clean things up a little bit and maybe just look at some, I don't know, like a small milling machine, for example. Pick one of them up, or a better table saw, or whatever it may be. Doesn't really matter. Just things that'll make equipment that'll mean when people come in, they can think, oh, I can do this project, or I can do that project, or whatever projects that they have, and then look at something else and think, ooh, I wonder what project I can do on there. Because that's how you get them. It's like, oh, you can do all these projects that you already have in mind, but look over there, think of a project for that as well. And
it's like, the sweets by the till in the supermarket, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Oh, we do also have sweets in there as well. So,
you got a vending machine, or is it kind of a
tuck shop? No, just a tuck shop. So people will go out, buy the stuff, and it's a donation to the space from the member, and then whoever wants to buy chocolates and drinks, like we've got cans and like bars of chocolates of various types. It's like if someone's in there and they need a snack, prices are there. Chuck a couple of quid in, crack on, type of thing. It's not anything major, and the system. Yeah, I appreciate the system does require a lot of honor and people being, not being total terrible human beings, and that's why the membership. We try and make that assessment at the open evening when they come along and meet everybody, and we can sort of gauge the person as well and be like, oh, this is is this person someone that we want in the space, or is this person someone who's going to abuse the space? That's because at the end of the day, if you have a couple of people who take care of the space, clean up after themselves and do everything right, and then you have one or two people who don't, it's not fair on the others. So
yeah, it can be demoralizing.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's a difficult one, that, because as much as we want people to come in, the guys have turned people away because those people already have a prior reputation. And it's like, yeah, well, tough. And I mean, the other thing that we don't allow is business use either, so people to use it for business purposes.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, it's like, don't make money off of us, basically. And if you're planning to do that, then pay more to account for that. But quite often it's a case of, we don't want you to use it for business purposes. If you do use it for business purposes, we expect you to pay more. It's like, oh no, I can't afford to pay more. So,
but if you're using it for business purposes, then you should be making money from it. So,
you're factoring that into the cost of your service or product that you're selling.
Yeah, which apparently did happen, and that's how that lesson was learned in the early days of the space before I was there. So,
do you know anything about the history of it? How did it come about? Do you know?
So it was. I don't know whether it was students, whether they were students at the time, or whether they had just graduated, but they all went to Teesside University, which is the local university here, and it started off in a room in Teesside University somewhere.
Okay.
So they advertised it as 24-hour access, but so you could access the room 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but you couldn't access the building 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So as a result, it became unsustainable to be able to run the space from the university. And they got to a level where they were like, well, you know what, we've got enough members in now that we can actually move to an industrial unit. And in Middlesbrough, there's plenty of industrial units, and they moved to a business park that has several different units, and that was the unit that they were in originally when I joined. And they'd been in that unit for about a year or so when I got there. And then they moved from there, literally a few months later, they moved from there to the unit that we're in now, which is sort of twice the size. And it fits us quite nicely, actually, for the size we're at and the rate of growth. So again, before we hit the pandemic, the rate of growth we were at meant within a few weeks or a few months, I think it was, we would have been well past the break-even point where we would be self-sustaining and the money would have started coming in fully. But because we had to shut down because of the pandemic, some of the members felt that they weren't getting the use out of the hack space, so they decided to cancel their memberships. And you know what? That's fair enough, because there's a lot. I'm guessing a lot of memberships got cancelled that year, and some of them have felt that because they weren't making the use of the hack space, even when they were able to, they've decided that actually they've changed hobbies in the time that they've had off. So they're no longer interested in those things. And maybe they'll redevelop that interest later on and they'll come back. But in the interim, we're finding new members coming in. And it's more a case of just making people aware of the hack space and telling them where it is, because we're not exactly in the most obvious location, because the business park is tucked away, as business parks often are, tucked away somewhere, and we're so you've got to sort of go down a main road past a load of places, and then you find the business park, but you don't actually know where the hack space is until you look. And then if it's dark, you can't actually see, even though the sticker in the window is supposed to be fluorescent, like it's supposed to shine quite brightly, it's still not obvious that we're there. So I think we need to maybe figure out how to put a sign up on in the front of the industrial park and also on the garage as well, to just
sounds like a couple of projects to me, or maybe you can find somewhere where you can make some things that might help.
There's well, to be fair, I literally only just thought of those as we were having this conversation, and that conversation came up. So,
we aim to help.
So that will be put into the Hackspace group chat at some point later today, because I think it would be, especially if it's something easy to remove off of the thing. Rare earth magnets would work, actually. That would work. Yeah.
If you got something metal to some magnetic to stick them
so
to.
The garage roller door has a big metal box on there, so I imagine that's steel, so that should work. I mean, we use rare earth magnets for the doorbell when the open nights are on, and it sticks to the door pretty well. So
I suppose depending on how thick the roller door is as well, you can always put the corresponding magnets on the inside, so you've got locators for it to.
Yeah, that's a shout as well. Depends. I mean, I was just gonna sort of get the sign CNC'd in MDF and then glue some magnets onto it with Gorilla Glue. That'd work, because then the lettering can be taken apart and put away in much more convenient storage place. And it's when we move space, if and when, probably a when more than an if, but when we move space, we can just take that sign and then put it outside. Take it with, as opposed to it being a permanent fixture. So that might start getting designed tomorrow in AutoCAD.
Interesting comment from the chat. Ian in the shed says you're only about 30 minutes away from where he works.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder where. Yeah, it's. I mean, Middlesbrough's. Ian is based in the northeast of England as well, so the signed CNC delivered. I'm yours from Mr. Molten Make. Yeah, but yeah, Ian is in the northeast of England as well. So it's. I thought he was further north though, for some reason. The
closest the way he works, so maybe
perhaps
he's further north and works south.
Ventures south.
Yeah, ventures south. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I know the closest maker to me is Andrew McQuillan. He's in the next town over. So it's and I have told him to come to the Hackspace at some point, but it's I don't think he's had time. Yeah, so
I think it's you say you're the nearest maker, but that's just the nearest maker that you know of. But that's within the kind of the community part of the community we're in.
Yes,
it's quite interesting. Last night I was googling this. There's going to be some roadworks in the village, and I was trying to find out what these roadworks are about. I couldn't find out what they were about, but I could find out what they were. And when I went on the kind of website where I was hoping to sort of find it, Google Map came up of the village, and this name came up for a business, as they do on kind of Google Maps. You know, when you kind of zoom in, you get these business names. It's like, ooh, that's an interesting name. It was kind of it was one of those names that stands out.
Yeah,
and I was like, click on that. It's like, no, it didn't really sort of show anything. Right, so I'll Google it. So I Googled it and sort of discovered that in the village, literally kind of I walk past every day with the dog.
Yeah, is
a company that makes puzzles for escape rooms.
Oh wow, that's.
And I'm like, at some point I've kind of got this idea for an interview series where I kind of interview within the village and kind of and people I know. And also within the kind of community, people like JP further over in Kent. Yeah, there are stacks of makers and artists and people with a variety of different skills.
Yeah,
and it's like right. I want to go and find out who this guy is and talk to him at some point, and kind of maybe have a chat and possibly some sort of interview and sort of say, well, tell me about how you got into this, because it's quite an interesting business. And how do you get into something like making puzzles for escape rooms? It's not something you'd think about when you're in school, or certainly not. You might now if you're in school, but 10 years ago, 20 years ago, an escape room. So you might find a DEFCON, but
that's it. It's
or Alcatraz.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mentioned Andrew McQuillan, but like you say, every member of the Hackspace is a maker by the very fact that they're members of the Hackspace.
Yeah,
and it's just they're not within this particular sub-community because we are essentially.
A question would be: Are they involved with, maybe just in a different community, social media making somewhere else? Are they not involved in sort of social media? Are they aware that there's actually a strong social media based maker community that's international?
Yes, they are definitely aware of it, because I mention it on a semi-regular basis in conversations, because everyone's like, oh, what have you been up to? Oh, I was on Discord and this, that and the other and whatever else. You should listen to this podcast episode, it was really good, type of thing.
Well, they need to listen to this one, of course.
I did put the link in the Slack chat, so whether any of them are listening and not actually in the conversation, that's a different matter. But it's like I say, it's a case of they get involved where they can, but as I say, a lot of them I think were like me just before I got involved with Woodworking UK, that they just got fed up with Facebook and social media generally, and just thought, you know what, getting fed up with this, gonna turn it off because it's toxic. Whereas for me, I was at that point where I was about to turn it off and then found a reason not to. And that might be the difference. And I mean, I know at least one person is involved in the content creation side of things, but he is more geared towards home automation, and more on him a bit later on. Just a little tease there, just a little sprinkle. Yeah,
a bit of home automation.
Yes. So
I think you're right. I mean, I know quite a few people who are only on Facebook because of things like the Fools with Tools group.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me, it's groups like Fools with Tools.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other groups that I'm involved with, Kicking the Creatives, which is kind of an art one. But I could do that elsewhere, but it's more of a community based on Facebook than it is on Instagram. And a few relatives who only use and ex-work colleagues, school friends who only use Facebook. They're not on the other social medias that I still want to keep in contact with. But I don't use Facebook anywhere near as much as I used to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally on Facebook because of groups that I'm involved with. So there's, like I say, Fools with Tools, Woodworking UK. I don't even jump in on anymore just because Facebook's algorithm doesn't show me the content as much as it used to.
It's a big group as well.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, over 30,000 members, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a very well curated group as well. The admin team in that group is very, very good. I have to say, and they are in. I think they're in other groups as well.
Yeah, there's a couple of them in Fools with Tools.
Yes, there is.
There were 3 really active woodworking groups, of which they were one. One group I think there were 2 really active ones, and there were issues, I think, with one of them that now formed. There's a third group being formed because there were issues with politics.
But Woodworking UK were the only one who had a stand at Maker Central.
Yes. Yeah.
Biscuit Mountain.
Yeah. But yeah, because I remember seeing the Woodworking UK group, and then the one that formed because they got annoyed that the admin were basically telling them off for being, from what I understand, not very nice people. So then they were like,
it's weird, that, isn't it?
Yeah, they weren't very nice people, and the admin told them off for it. And they were like, "Well, we're going to spit our dummies out and start our own group where this happens," and then they had to do the exact same thing because of Facebook being a little bit stricter, and then so on. It's like,
and then it happens again because people don't like other people being kind of trying to keep things sensible. And
it was exactly the same in a Facebook group for 3D printing, where it was kind of a bit of a no holds barred kind of group, and then people went a little bit beyond the realms of human decency. And then they all buggered off and set their own group up and did exactly the same thing. So it was a load of people going, no, we don't think that's appropriate even for a group where there's no rules.
Yeah.
And then they had their own like FU to the other group. And then that just basically turned into this ever decreasing spiral of hatred into the cesspool.
Yeah, that's it. And this is the problem you have on social media. You have a small number of people who make a lot of noise about being treated unfairly, and you then have people who sympathize with that because they think, oh, this person's been treated unfairly. Not that they may not share the same views, but they'll think, oh, this person has been treated unfairly, so I'm going to support that person because supporting the underdog is something that people like to do. It's a common thing. They like to support the underdog. Then they realize that person is actually a terrible person, and then they're like, oh crap, I'm going to leave and I'm going to do my own thing now. And it just spirals, and but
it's a vacuum chamber, isn't it?
Yeah, until you just sort of say, I'm not getting involved anymore, and it's so hard to do, especially on some of the local. Like, I try and keep aware of what's locally happening in the area, just with certain posts, and because I'm also involved with Andy's Man Club in Middlesbrough, and I'm being one of the facilitators. It's helpful to be able to point people in the right direction for that.
But for the benefit of those who aren't in the know,
oh, sorry,
would you? I mean, I'll just say now, Andy's Man Club is not me. It's not something that I've set up.
You saying there's more than one Andy on the internet?
Apparently, yes.
Yeah.
Interestingly, as a little aside, I don't know if this is perhaps a mistake. Previous guest Rob Thomas posted a couple of days ago. He got hold of a little kind of electrical enclosure. It looked like a power supply, and it turned out that it was I think Peter Clifton is the name that springs to mind. Maybe that pyrography set. So it looks like it's kind of a 1980s, 1970s power supply, but actually it's something you can go out and buy. And he picked it up for like £2, but there was no pen. And I kind of spotted it. Somebody else had posted, they picked one up off Facebook Marketplace. And so it was like, that's one of these. You need to kind of have a look at that because you can get a spare pen. So he kind of picked it up. And he posted, he got a pen. And he put a post on Instagram yesterday or the day before sort of saying, yeah, got this pen. Thanks to Andy Pugh for letting me know this is a pyrography kit. And I'm probably not going to use it for this guitar pedal that I was thinking of using it for. And somebody else replied, because obviously he tagged me, whether he then had incorrectly typed it and then corrected it because I couldn't see anything. There's an Andy Pugh who's a female graphic designer in the States who has the URL andypugh.com, who kind of said, "You're welcome." It's like, no, it wasn't you, it was me. So, digress from my little story. Andy's Man Club, for the benefit of those, particularly those perhaps in the States who may not have heard of it, and those in the UK who may not have heard of it.
Yeah,
I've never heard of it. Yeah.
Okay, so Andy's Man Club is a mental health support group for men. It was started by a gentleman called Luke Ambler, whose friend Andy committed suicide. And he started it because one of the common things about people with depression and suicide is men don't talk about their problems. And I'm a living testimony to that. I never used to, at least. And there are plenty of other people like that. And so Luke started this group, and I believe we're up to about 70 clubs now in various parts of the UK and Scotland. Well, UK is Scotland.
I have a feeling, I mean, I follow them on Instagram. I have a feeling it may be higher than that, but I may be wrong. I'm not involved in one. We're growing at a considerable rate. So when I first got involved with them, there was only a handful of clubs, and I would have to drive to 2 towns over called Hartlepool. For those that are not aware, Hartlepool is famous for hanging a monkey because they thought he was a French spy. Hopefully that's considerable time ago, not recently.
It was back in the Napoleonic Wars, but at the same time, having met some of the people in Hartlepool, I mean, it wouldn't surprise. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. But anyway, enough about that place. So Andy's Man Club was based in Hartlepool, and there still is a place in Hartlepool, but it also covered Sunderland, Durham, Peterlee, and Middlesbrough, Stockton. So quite a
large area.
Yeah, quite a large area. So you're talking an hour radius overall, basically, driving distance wise. And it was only last year that Andy's Man Club started in Middlesbrough. And it wasn't me who started it, as it happens. I had thought about approaching them and saying, look, there should be a club in Middlesbrough, but someone else beat me to it and started one in Middlesbrough because I was active at the Hartlepool one, and they had asked me, well, not asked me, but they did think about making me a facilitator there. And a facilitator is just someone who helps to run the meetings. The guy who was a facilitator at the Middlesbrough one basically said, look, do you want to be a facilitator? Will you do the training and all the rest of it? So I was like, yeah, that's fine. I'll do it, because I was pretty much doing something similar with the Hartlepool one anyway. So I said, yeah, that's fine. I'll do it. And I've been a facilitator with them since sort of October time. But we're still quite a small group in comparison to the Hartlepool one, which had some 30 some odd men coming along to it on a weekly basis before the pandemic. And then again, Sunderland has quite a large membership scale. It's just with the Middlesbrough one at the moment, there's no confirmed location as it stands, because the location is subject to change. So the facilitator who's running it is planning to be more aggressive on the marketing side of things when the new location is confirmed. But that's still up in arms as to when that's going to happen. But at the same time, it's every Monday at 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock, and it's literally a space.
And that's the hours. If I believe,
yes,
I'm right. That's the hours for every Andy's Man Club across the country.
Yes, it is.
Every Monday, 7 till 9.
Every Monday, 7 till 9, and the questions are always the same in every Andy's Man Club as well. So every week there's 4 primary questions, and then 2 that change every week, just to put everyone on a high and let everyone go away with a bit of a smile on their face, a bit of a chuckle. And there's also, a lot of the time, there's a WhatsApp group or a messenger group, or I tried to get Hartlepool, Sunderland and Middlesbrough into a Discord group so we could, because I knew the members of the Sunderland group, the Hartlepool group, and obviously I was in the Middlesbrough group. So I sort of set up the Discord and realised that I knew nothing about Discord. And so I set it up, invited everyone to join it, and nobody joined. Only like 2 people joined it. So I was like, well, it's still there. If they decide to take it forward as a new platform to step away from Facebook, which would be my preference, but everything is via Facebook Messenger groups. So people can post about any issues they're having, if they're having any particularly horrible thoughts at all, and there's someone available there to say, let's have a chat, let's tell me what's going on. And it does work, and it has worked. There's stories that people have been telling about it, and it's like, whoa, it's really nice to see that a group of people have been able to get together and help complete strangers. And the direction, and it's positive. It's nice to see that the direction that they're going in is more open and all-encompassing for all men. And as a result of the Hartlepool Andy's Man Club, one of the gentlemen there started his own charity, which was in partnership with Andy's Man Club, that offered people a space to go where, instead of talking, it was activity based. So it gave people something to do. And that went from being an exclusive for men only to being open to having days for women only. I think women only is Wednesdays. So, and it's helping people, and that's really good to see. and it's quite nice to be a part of that as well.
Yeah.
Albeit I don't like wearing the branded hoodies and the hat and all the rest of it, but at the same time, it's nice to be a part of that. It's nice to be involved with it, to be able to say, yeah, I can do this, and I'll go around, and as I say, one of the reasons why I keep an eye on the local groups is because if there's psychological health stories or mental health stories or whatever, I can put in, go to Andy's Man Club in Middlesbrough, go to Mind, go to this place, because I've tried them all. So I can sort of say, these are the services that are available. Have you tried them? And quite often it's a case of, oh, I didn't know these services existed.
Yeah, when it comes to either they exist or they are as close or accessible as they are.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. And as soon as sometimes that's all it takes. I remember having a conversation with one of the people at Andy's Man Club and just saying to them, have you been to your GP and had this conversation? It's like, oh, can I talk to my GP about that? Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Have a conversation with them. And then they will put you into someone else who can then provide you with more direct help. Oh, I didn't know that could be done. Then now you do. And sometimes it's as simple as that. As simple as, say, pick up the phone to your GP and have that conversation. Because sometimes that's all it takes. Yeah, and the GP will say, you know what, I'll refer you to Mind, or we have Alliance is one of the psychological places that we have counselling and stuff. So the GP will refer people to that. And that's all it sometimes takes. And people, in 6 months' time, they go from being in a state of depression and anxiety to being able to function.
Yeah. It's such a huge change. That influence to be able to say, look, there are options and they are available to everyone and they are accessible and they are easy to progress with. Like you say, being able to just speak to a GP, whether it's your own GP that you regularly see or just a general appointment with whoever is available at the surgery, or like you say, whatever you feel most comfortable with. The amount of help that is there, it's way beyond what you realize is there.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of help out there, but there is still in comparison to physical help, like help for physical health, it's nowhere near the same level.
It's got a hell of a long way to come.
Yes, but at the same time, if you consider that psychological health is, we've only really started looking at psychological health seriously in maybe the past 10 years, I think, as where resources have been dedicated towards it, and all of these things have been happening now, where it's actually looked at seriously. 10 years versus physical health, which has been around since, I don't know what,
14, it's thousands of years, essentially.
Thousands, yeah, exactly. So it's got a long way to go, but it's positive to see that at least...
it's certainly come a long way in the last, if you consider the sort of treatments that people were getting for mental illness. Psychological illnesses.
It's 50 not too long ago they were still just pumping electricity through you to bring you out of anything.
Through your temples to kind of just basically lobotomize people to you're depressed, have a lobotomy.
And I mean, even now the antidepressants, a couple of years ago, antidepressants were prescribed like Skittles. Now the attitude is a little bit different. It's, well, okay, try the antidepressants, but if they don't work, come back to us and we'll see where it goes. And it's a much more collaborative At least that was my experience. At least I don't know if that's the same with other people.
I think again, it probably helps that people are talking about it. More people are talking about these things.
Reducing the stigma is
organisations such as Maxwell, reducing the stigma. People being aware of these things. Yeah, not just a case of, oh, yeah, she takes happy pills. Yeah, it's that those conversations, kind of hopefully disappearing. Yeah, the whispers behind going, oh he's on uppers or whatever. Yeah, it's kind of people are actually sort of saying that actually you can get cognitive behavioural therapy, and you take some medicines for a while. It might take you a little while to get the right combinations, or the right ones, and so the side effects are not too bad, and all.
But again, I mean, even explaining that fact of like there are multiple options out there for tablets, and you don't have to, if someone says here, take these tablets, and they don't agree with you, they don't work for you, you can go back and goes, these don't work. Can I change them for something else? It's little bits of information like that, and
knowing that actually there are lots of options. It's not just tablets. There are other options to go with those. And knowing that there's other people who maybe have the same thoughts, the same feelings, the same kind of worries and difficulties. Just knowing that you're not alone sometimes. Somebody else going, I've had that.
Yeah. I mean, so back when I was first diagnosed with depression and anxiety, I watched a video by Dwayne Johnson, who talked about his own experiences with depression and anxiety. And this is Dwayne Johnson, the giant
hugely successful, multimillionaire, actor, sportsman,
exactly,
entertainer.
And one of the things he said at the end of the video was, it might be rough right, and I'm sort of paraphrasing because I can't remember exactly, but it was, might be rough right now, but just know you are not alone. And you're not the first person to go through this, and you're not the last, and you can get through this, and you're not alone. And that was it. Like, that was the crux of it, that not being alone is like, Jesus, like someone like Dwayne Johnson can go through something like that.
Yeah.
And come out of the other side.
What's his phrase he uses at the minute? Tough times don't last, but tough people do.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. And even that phrase has been around for a long time. And all these phrases can be cliche, and they can be motivational and all the rest of it.
Absolutely, but they're still raising awareness to it as being a problem, and reducing that stigma and bringing it more out into the open.
But at the same time, and sometimes those little cliche statements can be the thing that just hits you right in that spot that you need it, and it can be the thing that keeps you going that one day. Because that's all you need to do. When you're in that place, one day at a time,
till tomorrow, and then reassess.
But I mean, even if you can't do it a day at a time, take it an hour or 10 minutes or whatever. Do the bare minimum that you can do, and move forward from there, and just take things as they come. And that's the best way to do it. Because
there was it was like a breakdown of a conversation that a person had with their therapist on dealing with this kind of thing, and specifically like functioning through this kind of thing. And it was along the conversations of run the dishwasher a second time.
Yes. I remember
the
that.
Sort of the crux of it being that you don't have to do the maximum 100% everything perfect first time, anything like that. It was you don't have to spend time to pre-clean the dishes before they go in the dishwasher. Just stick them in the dishwasher, run it, and if they're not clean, run it a second time. It's easier to run the dishwasher a second time than it is when you've got no energy, no drive to do anything. You know, and you feel like you've got to stand there and pre-clean the dishes or stuff like that. There is another way. You know, wear the same clothes for another day. Wash your face instead of getting in the shower. You know, it's okay to not hit 100% all the time. You know, it's okay to let yourself be not okay.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we are still working on as a society and as a you know, as the human race itself, is accepting that we can't be perfect every single time.
Yeah,
accepting that it's okay not to be. I mean, the Andy's Man Club thing is it's okay not to be okay, and we have a lot of. I mean, I have a lot of trouble dealing with that. I mean, it's like, oh my god, I'm going to be terrible at everything I do, and I have to be like, oh no, I have to be perfect at everything I do. It's like, well, no, I don't. I can get away with it. I don't have to be this fantastically, you know, perfectly healthy body, ripped, all this stuff with, you know, perfect beard and hair and all the rest of it. I can have a patchy beard. You know, I can shave it off and look like a 12-year-old, as Dale always mentions. You know, all of that is fine and it's okay, and it's just being able to accept as a person. And sometimes, even when someone says to you, "It's fine, it's okay, you don't have to do all of this," you still, me at least, I still like, nope, I still have to do it all. I still have to be this person because it's wired in my brain.
And social media kind of puts that right in the forefront of,
yes,
you know, you see everyone's perfect day, you see everyone's perfect project.
It's the show reel. We compare our behind the scenes, because that's where we are, where we live, to somebody else's show reel.
You mentioned earlier on about Heidi.
Yeah,
and Heidi posted fantastic stuff yesterday with showing failures where she's been throwing things and they haven't worked out, and showing the human frustration.
Yeah.
You know, and it's things like that are so unbelievably powerful and so needed, especially for people who are struggling. You know, to see that we are all human. We are
mistakes can happen.
We learn, we fail, we learn. You know,
it's at the end of the day, it's why we prototype. Prototypes exist to iron out mistakes. But in everyday life, we don't allow ourselves to prototype. It's like everything has to be perfect the first time around. It's like, that's such an unreasonable expectation to have of you. I mean, for me, I know I have that expectation of myself. And I think about it. I think about how illogical it is.
It's something you see in schools all the time, and that it wasn't when I was teaching. I taught for over 20 years, and I didn't see. Certain things changed. There's always going to be sort of change, societal change. I mean, when I first started teaching, most children didn't have mobile phones. Yeah. By the time I finished teaching, there were very few who didn't have a mobile phone, and it would be a smartphone. So there were things like that, but there was always young people who, if they couldn't get it right first time, they wouldn't do it at all. Yeah. Or they wouldn't try, and they weren't prepared to make mistakes. Yeah. They weren't prepared to kind of have a go and not get it quite right. And that's something that I know some of it can come from things the likes of social media. Yeah. Where you get the kind of girls who are trying to look like kind of Kardashians. They're trying to do the kind of they don't have access to $300 an hour of makeup artists with thousands of dollars worth of makeup and the training and the years behind that, and they're trying to kind of achieve the same things.
plastic surgeons and the dietitians and the,
and the
personal
injections
trainers
from
and
the aesthetics technicians and the like.
Yeah, so there's a great picture online somewhere where it's got a picture of Kim Kardashian before she was famous, like when she was broken, before her dad was popular and all the rest of it, and then after she was famous, and the caption reads, "You're not ugly, you're just poor," or something, or something along those lines. It's like there's a few celebrities there, and it just shows how different they looked before they had money and after they had money, and it's like, yeah, you know what? There's a lot to be said there, because
I mean, I would absolutely be, slim and ripped and everything if I was being paid, $100,000. If someone's paying me $100,000 a year to work out, get in shape, and do nothing else to prepare for, a movie role or a TV thing or
TV
whatever.
show or whatever it may be, if literally your job is a professional athlete, you are literally paid to be a professional athlete. As as we mentioned, Dwayne Johnson, everyone talks about how his physique is for an actor, but at the same time, he was a professional, and it might be scripted and all the rest of it, but at the same time, sports entertainment wrestling is still
athletes.
Still an athletic endeavor,
and it's I know a few wrestlers, not WWE that level, but British wrestlers, and they are physical athletes. You still, although the moves aren't scripted, but they still have to pick that human being up and throw that human being. They're still real physical feats of athleticism.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you're falling from 6 feet in the air, even if it is onto a bouncy floor, the kind of flexible ring floor, they are bouncier than
the rings are essentially, a half-inch of padding on top of 18mm plywood, and they have a damper in the middle of the ring. But you're still falling,
it's still going to hurt.
From
it's still
6 feet in the air.
Falling and landing.
And
I do that on carpet from my height. It hurts.
Yeah, exactly. This is it. And so, I still watch professional wrestling. I still enjoy it. It's kind of like my soap opera. How people like Hollyoaks and EastEnders. I don't watch any of that. I watch professional wrestling because it's people beating the hell out of each other when they have a problem with each other. It's great. And it's it's scripted, so they're going to be safe with each other, so it's not like malicious or anything.
But even still, you say it's scripted. The win and lose at the end of the match is predetermined, but that's about it.
That's it. Yeah,
there's not much more to it than that. I don't know if you're familiar with Hot Ones from First We Feast. I don't know if you've ever come across that. It's basically it's a guy called Sean Evans who is this phenomenal interviewer, and he hugely well researched questions. And the whole premise of the show, it's a YouTube show, and the premise is that it's him and the guest, and they have 10 increasingly spicy chili sauces, and they have 10 chicken wings each.
Yeah.
And what they'll do is they'll each have the chicken wing, and then they'll discuss something. So he'll ask them a question, and they'll talk about a particular topic for each of the chicken wings.
Yeah.
And he's had Chris Jericho, Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and talked about all these things, and talked about various things, feuds that they've had between different wrestlers or influence or things like that. And it's a really, really, really good insight, for people who like professional wrestling to talk about these kind of things. And can't remember whether it was Taker or Stone Cold was talking about a particular, it might be Jericho, I can't remember now. I watched basically the three of them back to back. But they were discussing a particular match where it was a relatively new wrestler who was in with them, and they'd got injured in the match. In fact, I think it might have been Chris Jericho actually, and this wrestler had got injured, and the referee hadn't realised.
Mm-hmm.
So they were trying to wind the match up. So then he was sort of like shouting at the referee to try and make the referee kind of wind the match up and disqualify him.
Yeah.
But because he'd had that kind of like, well, hang on, now he's just being mean. So the referee was then giving back to him. So then it's just like, no match, and then like shouting. So it's just kind of like there's this guy like on the floor like, I can't move, guys. My leg is really not right.
I mean, I've sort of seen a lot of the stuff with like backstage interviews and with the wrestlers outside of their characters, and it's really interesting. Like the amount of work and effort that goes into putting these matches together, and then the storylines behind it. It's incredibly hard work for starters, but also there are some real risks involved in just some like there's one wrestler called Ray Phoenix who the guy defies gravity and moves like it's like he's moving through different dimensions and then pulling off these moves. I can't understand how he's able to do it, but in what was for him a relatively straightforward spot landing, he landed awkwardly on his elbow, on his arm, and his arm bent out like this awful angle, and you saw it on TV, and it was horrible. And I just saw it, and I was like, "Ooh, that's awful. I really hope he's okay." And immediately you saw the other wrestler sort of wave the referee over and they quickly panned over because the production level, for live TV, it's designed to, when you're live at the event itself, it's different. But for TV audiences, they try to keep that mystery and magic alive. So there's a lot of production quality that goes into it as well. But like I say, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's like theatre, isn't it? It's a live performance with two people who are coordinating an unchoreographed action sequence.
Yeah.
The only thing is predetermined which one's going to walk out there the victor.
Yeah.
But otherwise, everything else is spur of the moment, essentially.
Yeah, and in some cases they do go over certain spots, and they do sort of say, we're going to do this, we're going to do certain things, but everything else is called on the fly. Famously, Shawn Michaels versus Ric Flair in one of Ric Flair's retirement matches, that was completely called on the fly by Shawn Michaels at the biggest stage of WWE, which was WrestleMania. And it was like he was literally taking Ric Flair, who is arguably one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, albeit his star power has since faded given his actions that have come to light, shall we say.
As have a few others from that era.
Yes. And yeah, but despite all that, he is still arguably one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And it was Shawn Michaels, again, another person who's arguably one of the greatest of all time, taking him through Ric Flair through an entire match and calling it on the fly. And it's gone down in history as one of the greatest matches ever. And it's like, whoa, that's, when you learn the history behind it, okay, yeah, the people involved might not be great human beings, but that doesn't take away from the fact that they produced something that is a spectacle to watch.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's...
I suppose for the background, for those who aren't quite as familiar with what we're... Because I realise that we're essentially talking in our own language here. In terms of calling these moves out, it is literally one of the wrestlers might grab the other and throw them towards the ropes and literally say a word or 2 or 3 words as they are throwing them at the ropes, and they've got that amount of time from the middle of the ring to the ropes and back to mentally prepare for what is about to hit them. And then how they are personally going to react to it. And that's whether it's a case of positioning their body to fall correctly or to be lifted up or to lift up. so that it's in the region of a couple of seconds to hear the words, process, and then adjust themselves to either be smacked in the face, tripped over, thrown out the ring, hit in the face with a chair, thrown up and land, or any of this kind of thing in a very, very short space of time for that kind of recognition and processing and physical adjustment.
Exactly that. But I mean, how we ended up on this tangent of wrestling from
welcome to Maker's Waffle
from Instagram and Kim Kardashian to talking about Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair.
Via spicy chicken wings.
And spicy chicken wings, yes, I forgot about that one. Yeah, that's
there was a full circle there because we started off with apps, Android apps, then moved on to pizzas and naan. So it was kind of a food thing there. So we kind of got back to food.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, we did get back to food. That's.
I mean, with Waffle, we've always got to get back to food somehow.
Of course, yeah. It wouldn't be Maker's Waffle without at least talking about food, because I mean, last week
I
was
thought more Fools with Tools were more kind of food with that's all.
Well, that's Fools with Tools is food and weather, isn't it?
Yeah.
Food, weather, and cars.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
I only said that because Steve's probably cooked it off by now.
Yeah. I'm guessing a lot of people have by the looks of it. I don't know who's left. It's yeah.
Yeah, it takes dedication to be followed all the way along on the live. Yeah, at least on the recorded one, you can kind of dip in and out and stop it and go for food breaks and the like.
Yeah, well, there is that. I mean, I'll be honest. Whenever I've tried to be on the live in the live chat and following along, I mean, normally so in preparation for tonight, I made sure I had enough coffee in me to make sure I didn't fall asleep halfway through. And I took my time with my preparation, so I was like, this is, I know I'm gonna have to be on here till at least 11 o'clock, so I should probably have another coffee in the day. Normally, I limit myself to a maximum of 2. Today, I stretched to 3, and it was so I did make sure, because normally I'll get to about 11 o'clock. Well, on a normal day, I'll get to about 10 o'clock and I'm ready to crash out. But on a Sunday, I will try and be in the chat for Maker's Waffle and stretch to at least 11 o'clock before I'm like, right, I tap out. That's it. I've got to crash out. Because originally, I was going to the gym on a Monday, and I would go to the gym early morning because I don't like people beating in the gym when I'm there. I like it to be really empty, so there's no one there when it's early. So
even January. January's a busy month for gyms, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I've been sick all this week and then all last week as well. So I've not been well since January started. So it'll only be this week that I go in. However, when you guys started, I was in on a Monday, and I was like, I really want to listen to Maker's Waffle, but I also really need to wake up early to go to the gym. So I was trying to do both, realized that I couldn't do both. So I was like, right, okay, screw it. I'm just going to shift my day along. So Monday is now my sort of Sunday rest day type of thing, where I don't do anything. Tuesday is the day I start in the gym, so the start of my week in the gym, and it goes all the way to Sunday, and it works. Because I mean, that's what I used to do before. When I lived in Leeds and I went 6 days a week, that's what I used to do. I would train Tuesday to Sunday, because Mondays suck, and going to the gym and then work on a Monday, that's hard. Going to work is hard enough on a Monday. Going to the gym as well at 5 a.m. and all the rest of it, I was like, maybe doing a Tuesday works better. Tried it, it worked great. So I was like, right, I'll stick with that. It's only when I started going back to the gym here in Middlesbrough that I was like, just do Mondays. And then Maker's Waffle started, and then I was like, I've got to be in the I want to be in the live chat, so shift it to Tuesday. And then of course I end up ill and sick and all sorts of other things where I'm just a whole host of health issues basically, because
It's that time of year, and there's this pandemic thing which is not helping people with other things. Never mind.
That's
pandemic.
Well, we were saying about memberships being cancelled before, and that was when we shifted to working from home, because my gym is near work, so it's global pandemic. You don't really want to be then driving to near work to go to the gym only, and then to drive home. So I ended up cancelling my gym membership and then basically building one outside. And then like cold and sorting the house out and things like that. It's just I keep looking at it and going, I need to get back into training.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, actually, one of the things I found quite surprisingly beneficial was just going for a little walk around the park. My local park, the perimeter of it is about, I want to say 2.5 kilometers all the way around. It's not, it's not anything to write home about. It's not a long walk. Walking all the way around takes about 30 minutes ish. Good time to listen to a podcast. Just
not make us awful.
Well, I can maybe get a tenth of the way through Make Us Waffle.
That's your 15 times speed. Yeah.
Not a chance. Well, you see,
actually, six times would do it. 6 times, even our longest one. Yeah, half an hour's walk. You could do 8 times speed.
Yeah,
I can't do that one either.
No. See, I never listen to podcasts on like higher speed. I always listen to them in full normal speed, normal playback speed. Even though I'm like 60 plus podcasts behind, I haven't added this week to the list yet. Currently listening to Steve's appearance on Maker's Waffle, episode 20 something, I think it was. So currently listening to that.
24, I think.
Something like that. Yeah,
about 10 behind.
Yeah,
you've got a couple of long ones to go then.
I've got the long ones to go. Yeah, I've got.
But New Year was 4.5 hours. So
yeah, exactly. So what I might do is just save that for when I'm working on detailing the car. Well, cleaning the car, not detailing the car. And just literally, because when I'm doing that, I can literally stick my headphones in and just crack on through the day. And the next thing I know, it's like start at 10 o'clock, and the next thing I know, it's like 4. I'm like, oh, I've spent the whole day cleaning the car. Oops. Take the odd lunch break, the odd pee break, and then that's it. But
we like to think it helps people get through their working day if they're allowed to listen to podcasts. Yeah, it's like that's the only reason I got into podcasts was because I didn't want to. We were allowed to listen to music at work, and I was like, I really don't want to listen to music constantly because all I'll end up doing is like, nope, don't like this song, don't like this song, don't like this song. 2 hours later, I've done no work, and I'm still trying to pick a song. So I was like, right, probably not a good idea. And that's why the podcast thing became appealing, because I'd already listened to a little bit of Joe Rogan's stuff, and I'd caught a few episodes, so I'd sort of dipped my toe into podcasts, but I'd never listened to one after the other episode-wise. And that's when I sort of came across Measuring Up and thought, you know what, I'll give it a go. Gave it a go, and I was like, oh, wow, this is really interesting. And then sat at the back of the office with it being the miserable one that that didn't want to talk to anybody, didn't want to socialize with anybody, to randomly cheering, being like, yay, I got a shout out on this podcast I listened to. Like, they got my email. I was like, oh wow, that's crazy. And when I started listening to Steve, Al, and Brett, I'd start giggling randomly to things, and everyone would just turn around and be like, what the hell is he laughing at? Bearing in mind, I'm sat at the back of the room, headphones on, normally with a scowl on my face of like, I really don't like anyone, to suddenly like actually laughing and being like looking like I'm enjoying myself, and they're like,
what is he doing? He's planning to kill us all. I'm sure he's planning to kill us. That's
There's definitely something to be said for being able to pick who you listen to. Like being able to pick a podcast rather than just listening to the inane football chatter that goes on at work, or you can't turn the volume down on that or pause it, or whereas at least you can actively listen to a podcast of something you want to listen about. People you want to listen to.
It is great. And I mean, again, going back to our earlier conversation of when I first got into Instagram, sort of one of the reasons I ended up getting into it was like all the memes and life hack stuff that was going about on the internet. One of their life hacks was listen to podcasts instead of music. And I was like, I don't really know any podcasts. It was a new sort of thing to me. I knew a couple of people who'd done their own, but I never knew how to listen. And I thought podcasts, I had to have an iPod, not realizing that there were other apps available. And it was only when I had Spotify and I could listen to podcasts through Spotify that I realized that there were dedicated apps for podcasts. And I went for that, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll use a dedicated app for podcasts, and started listening, and I've never looked back. And now I subscribe to so many different podcasts. Well, partly because every person in our Discord seems to have a podcast. Like literally every person.
Yeah, the makers, for those who maybe missed it earlier, the makers on Zoom having coffee Discord. Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
A significant number of podcasts. Yeah.
Yes, there are. Yeah.
I think it's at least 5, I'm thinking. Possibly 6.
Yeah, I mean, I think Morley has at least 6 on his own.
2. He's got 2.
2. Got 2, yeah.
Yeah. Morley's got 2. So that's Clamp, along with Grant and Adam.
Into the Spotlight.
And Into the Spotlight with Ryan.
With Ryan, yeah.
And then there's Vincent, who was guest on here a few weeks ago, who's got Because We Make with Ethan Carter.
Yeah. And you've got Making Our Way with Christy.
Making Our Way. Austin,
Christy, Dean and Austin.
Yeah.
And you've got... I'm sure there's... Well, yours.
There was also... They've stopped now. There was... Jacob.
Oh, yeah, Makers Figuring Out as well. Jacob, Scott, and Steve.
Yeah. So it was that one as well.
Yeah.
Dave's just said he hasn't got one yet, so maybe the
yes.
Yeah, Dave hasn't got one yet.
Dave and Cuz, there you go. That'll be the next podcast.
Yeah.
And also Nick. That build.
Yeah, Nick. Yeah,
builds. He's got one as well.
Yeah. His
and
whiskey...
there's Wes from Geeksmithing. He's got one.
Oh,
so he's on one.
Yeah, you see, I haven't subbed to this because that just it's. I've taken the decision now that any new podcast will have to be put on the back burner. No matter how much I like the people who are hosting it, I cannot add any more podcasts because I am over 60 episodes behind, which is like 100 hours of podcasts, and I'm just not listening to them as much as I used to. Because like I say, at work, I had 7+ hours a day to listen to them. And on days when I was at college, I'd be commuting backwards and forwards from college, so I'd catch 10. Because my phone automatically connected to my car, Bluetooth would come on, podcast straight away. It's funnily enough, on longer drives, I can't listen to podcasts because I get distracted. So I listen to music on longer drives, but podcasts on shorter drives, which is a weird thing because I know a lot of people listen to podcasts on the longer drives, whereas I get distracted too easily with that.
When I started Fools of Tools, I used to listen to that on the commute to work.
Yeah.
And then I found that I was starting to just like on longer drives and stuff. I especially if I'm driving later on, I'm starting to just get a bit droopy and start to So no, I've got to switch back to music.
Yeah, that's it.
Crank music up nice and loud.
Yeah.
Keep yourself, wide awake and focused, rather than just listening to Steve's dulcet tones and getting all nice and cozy and warm and oh shit, no, why the window now? Get a bit of fresh air.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I say. I mean, when I was at work 7 hours a day, I could just crack on. Headphones were on. Occasionally, to be fair, even when I needed to take a break, I'd just leave my headphones on, because it would be these headphones, so nobody would come and try and talk to me about some random thing that I didn't want to know about. And then when they would, I would just give them a look of disdain and be like, "What do you want?" And I'd have to mute the podcast.
I was going to say it's perfecting that like. One second, let me just mute this. Let me just pause where I'm at.
Yeah.
Make it really, really slow. Take the headphones off.
Yeah.
What can I do?
Yeah.
Make them work for it.
Yeah. Well, mine would just be like I'll just look at them. I can't do it now because I'm smiling and I'm actually, with people I like talking to. Yeah, I enjoy the company of. So I can't even fake it at this point. But it would just be like, I'd keep the headphones on. I wouldn't even mute the podcast. I'd look at them and be like, listen, like pretend like I'm listening, and I'll be like, go back to what I'm saying. And if they don't tap me on the shoulder, I know it's just a load of crap that I don't need to listen to, and I can completely ignore. It's like, that's fine. Usually like the cake rounds or something like that, where it's like, oh, it's this person's birthday that you don't know and have never spoken to you in your entire life. Do you want to sign the card? Who? This person on this floor who sits in this corner. Literally don't know who that is. And it's like, that's one thing I won't miss about being at work. Having to pay into unnecessary, don't get me wrong, if it's people that I've spoke to at least once or twice, I don't mind.
Yeah.
But if it's literally someone I've never seen before in my entire life and I couldn't pick, I'm good with names and faces. So if I can't figure out who someone is, then I'm not going to contribute to that. That's just, it's almost impolite to do that. It's insincere, at the very least. It's insincere. It's it just happens all the time. It used to happen in every office I've been in. It's like, oh, do you want to do this? I'm like, you don't want to look bad. You don't want to look like an awful, but you want to look like a decent person. So when they come along,
what do you sign on the card? Say, hi, you don't know me. I hope you birthday, whatever. Yeah,
happy birthday, random person that you've never met, who's never spoken to you. That's about it.
Or you kind of scribble in a way that makes it unintelligible.
Yeah,
it's just kind of
I just put doctor at the start of your name so they don't even question
it. Yeah. Sadly, I can't get away with that. My friend can get away with that. He is an actual doctor who can get away with putting doctor before his name. But yeah, I would never be able to get away with that.
You only need to have the D recognisable, and it doesn't actually matter what else you scribble after that.
This is a fair point. I might have to try that one day. Yeah. So.
Go back slightly. Jacob has pointed out the Nick show is Whiskey, Wine and DIY.
Ah, that's it. Yeah.
And Steve Bauer pointed out that Making Geeks also stream live. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Only ever listened to them recorded.
Didn't know that. Yeah. In fairness, their live streams will be at 2 a.m.
This is true.
Ours do sometimes finish around that time.
Yeah.
This is also true.
Yeah, I did say to Andy, I'm not trying to break any records tonight, but I also said,
you also said, no one's going to want to listen. Probably not got much to talk about.
Yeah,
2.5 hours in.
And we're 2.5 hours in.
2.5 hours in, yeah.
And we haven't done attention grabbers yet.
We haven't done attention grabbers yet.
And we've only half sort of done an introduction.
Yeah, well, yeah, there was that as well. I mean, in fairness, we have covered hacks. We did do half an introduction. Maker spaces, mental health, and food.
Pizza.
We covered.
Yeah, we've
wrestling
gone quite the gamut.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered some wonderfully interesting topics. I think
if we just cover, we tend to stay away from politics.
Yeah.
So probably some world geography and some fine art, and we've probably covered just about every topic possible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's been a fair bit of UK geography, hasn't there?
Yeah, there has been. True. Yeah, we've covered UK geography. It's yeah.
So let's move on to attention grabbers. What's been grabbing your attention lately, Nicholas?
So the past couple of weeks, the one thing that's been grabbing my attention is Skillshare, which is, for those that don't know, a online platform for learning what can only be described as any and every skill that you can possibly think of that is digital in some way, shape, or form, and whether that's AutoCAD to Fusion, coding, Inkscape. Those are the ones that I'm interested in. There's probably Instagram tools on there.
It's non-digital stuff as well. There is non-digital things. Yeah.
Okay. I've not seen.
So things like some of it merges over. So things like product photography or photography.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Photography. Yeah. Oh, because
you've got those kind of sort of things.
Yeah.
And possibly more.
What's the name of the one that Vincent always mentions? Because she does product photography.
Tabitha Park,
that was it. Yeah. Product photography one was something that Vincent always mentions. Vincent Ferrari of Handmade by Vincent Ferrari, and Because We Make, a former guest of the podcast.
Indeed.
Yes. And also the man responsible for getting me to sign up to Skillshare. So he's to blame when I start doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things on Fusion and AutoCAD and all sorts of other things. Because it's amazing how much sometimes just going back, because I'm familiar with AutoCAD and I'm familiar with 3D modeling, but I wasn't confident with them, and I was a little bit intimidated by them because I felt like I didn't know them well enough. But then just going through those courses, it's like, oh, one, I know a little bit more than what I actually thought I did. Two, there was stuff that I didn't know, and there was some things that, like mouse shortcuts on AutoCAD, fantastically helpful.
Well, I think me and you need to probably have a natter about AutoCAD, because that is absolutely my jam.
Yeah.
I've been professionally working with AutoCAD every day for 19 years.
Oh, cool.
So,
Yeah, it's like I say, a lot of it was, for me, it was a case of being slicker on AutoCAD, because I knew how to do a drawing on it, but it was presenting that drawing, because at college they taught us to put the drawing page, build that in AutoCAD itself, put all the text in, and then put your drawing onto there, and then sort of scale everything down. Whereas actually there's a better way to do it, whereas you go into the drawing tab, put your actual sheet into the drawing tab, and then do a viewport which looks at the thing, and that's a lot more professional. I was like, why didn't we learn that in college?
And that's a real big problem, actually, because there's like a couple of schools of thought on that in old school, proper old school production engineering stuff, where you would draw your part one-to-one in model space, and then scale your view or scale your sheet up so it's the right scale, or like you say, where you bring the sheet in at the right scale, and then you scale your part down, so then the part's not drawn at one-to-one anymore. And like you say, when they brought sheets in, you just I need to make another view. What scale? That scale. Job done.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. And it's, for me, it was more a case of, I know when I end up in the engineering field, I'm going to need to use this at some point in some way, shape, or form, or at the very least have an understanding of it. So it was like, it's worth doing this. You know, it was a 7.5 hour course, an hour a day for 7 days. It's worth doing just to have that familiarity. And it was, the course I did was architectural based, but the principles are the same. The basics are the same. It's just certain little things may need to be tweaked and whatever else, but just having those little mouse shortcuts. Yeah. And the same goes. Yeah, the same goes for Fusion. Fusion 360 again. It was, I load up Fusion 360 and I was like, oh wow, this is a lot. Where do I start? How do I do it? The courses you did actually back in the early days of the pandemic, the schools for
2020, yeah.
They were a nice little taster into that area, but I was like, I wanted something to be. I didn't feel like you would have the time to be able to do one-to-one sessions with me, so I thought, I've got the Skillshare account. I may as well use it. And same guy who did the AutoCAD did the Fusion, and I was like, oh, I can actually do a decent model of something in Fusion now with relative ease. Okay, yeah, there's a little bit of fine tuning, and it's a software that the more you practice and the more I play with, the better I'll get at it. So yeah, Skillshare is definitely worth anyone who wants to learn certain things. It's worth spending the time on there and just having a look to see what's available and see how it goes. And the other thing that's been grabbing my attention recently is home automation, and which is a rabbit hole of epic proportions. Oh my goodness me. It's so I first got introduced to home automation because of a basic Philips Hue light bulb, because I'm too lazy to get out of bed and turn the light off. And I was like, I need a way to just, because sometimes when you're just comfortable, you just want to tell she who shall not be named to turn the light off for you, so you don't have to get up and because 9 times out of 10.
That's what we call ours as well.
Well, I got that from Mr. Hibbert off of Hibbert's Home Tech, who is quite a good channel, but he's not the person I'm going to mention. The gentleman I'm going to mention is a fellow member of the Teesside Hackspace. His name is Matt. His surname I cannot pronounce, but his channel and Instagram are Not Enough Tech. And he is he has built this entire channel off of finding the most cost-effective way of doing home automation, through stuff that you can buy on Banggood and AliExpress. So it's all Sonoff stuff and working with Node-RED and all sorts of other weird and wonderful things. He also did a 3D printed replica that works of the Mars rover and did a video of it. And he did his own little production thing, and it was great. And I was like, I think it is on his channel, but it's definitely worth checking out. And it's funny that you mentioned fine art earlier. Matt did a fine art degree. He started off in fine art, and now he works for a company that makes robots.
Nice.
And he's done that through his own, not through any formal learning. He taught himself how to do a lot of this stuff and figured it out on his own. And he's got a mind that works for it, and he's able to do all of these things. He's got this phenomenally overly complicated toolbox that lights up when you take certain things out, and it's brilliant. It is brilliant. And like I say, the way he actually, some of the projects he's doing and all sorts of other stuff, just genuinely a great guy. And his channel is, if you're interested in home automation and being able to do it in a really cost-effective way, he's worth checking out. So
awesome.
yeah, those are the things.
That's my next kind of home project, I think. So I've got a handful of things that are using the 2-year platform.
Yes.
So that the beep that everyone hears when it goes off at midnight here, so about 2.5 hours into the podcast, there's a beep, and then if you make it to 3.5 hours, there's another one.
Right.
I've got an aircon unit in this office, and there's a little infrared blaster sort of up here at the shop behind me, and then got a little temperature and humidity monitor that are all Wi-Fi connected. So there's like a routine to turn the aircon off at midnight and then at 1 o'clock, just in case I've been working late and turned it back on, and then it's temperature controlled for on and off. And just for the same reason of it takes a little bit of that cognitive load off.
Yeah.
When I'm working on something else and suddenly go, why the hell am I so hot? Breaking that flow.
Yeah.
Just let it take care of itself, then I don't have to think.
Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a reason people like. I mean, smart home tech isn't anything that's new. It's existed for at least 2 decades, I think.
It's got a lot cheaper and a lot more accessible.
That's exactly it. Because I mean, I remember seeing smart lights and smart blinds and all the rest of it when I was in secondary school on the early iteration of the Gadget Show. On Channel 5, and I was like, and I mean, I was in secondary school at least 20 years ago, so it's been around a long time. It's just now it's a lot more accessible, it's a lot easier to do, and it can be a lot more complicated to a point where literally you can set it up so you step out of bed and coffee is made at the same time, like as you're going downstairs. It's it's like I say, rabbit hole which leads to another rabbit. It's fantastic. It is fantastic what you can do with, if you spend the time, if you building a house from scratch in particular, where you spend the time and you can put all this automation inbuilt. Is that idea is just something that really appeals to me.
Same.
I see home automation, I can see it, but for me, like, it's just more things to go wrong. It's more things running electricity. It's just
so that's been a rule in our house.
Because there's a bit of my brain that's like, it's tech. I want this. I want to be able to do that. But there's another bit of me just goes, oh yeah, but it's going to go wrong, and I'm going to have to fix it. And it's going to think setting up, because I know these things don't work straight out of the box, and it's just all another thing. It's a cost to get it. It's a cost to set it up in terms of time, money, effort. And it's like, that's it. Look, I got a better light. I put my arm out. I go click.
So that's the rule in our house, is that, and because my wife is not a tech person at all, she's finally accepting that some of the stuff that I bring into the house is actually quite good. But the rule basically is I can set up smart tech I can set up whatever I want in this office, and if it's going to be any smart tech that appears anywhere else in the house, it has to be manual override first. So I would quite happily put motors in the curtains and all the rest of the stuff, as long you can do that, as long as I can come along and go with the curtain and pull it across. If it's something that I can't interact with normally, you're not having it.
The closest thing we've got to kind of home automating is the fact that our central heating controller sits on a shelf and can be moved from room to room if we want.
Okay.
So it's wireless central heating controller. That's about as far as our home automation goes.
I mean, in fairness, the only reason we even got the Philips Hue is because my little brother got a ridiculously good deal on it from Asda. So the full kit, which was normally like 50 quid, was like 25.
Nice.
And that included like 2 bulbs in the hub itself, and it was the latest version. And then he managed to sell one for 35 quid or something ridiculous like that. So still had the bulbs, And then when I decided that I wanted a slightly fancier bulb, which can do the different colors, I found one on Amazon that was £13 as opposed to the £67 million that Philips Hue is. And then I saw one on AliExpress for less than a tenner, and I was like, well, screw it, I'm just going to get those for less than 10 quid. And they're the same spec, they did everything the same, and they work through the same app. And I was like, well, it works. I'm not going to... Yeah, and it works great because I can set the automations up so it sort of has the sunrise lamp that sort of comes on gradually as the sun at certain times, basically.
Yeah.
And it actually does help with setting up a decent wake up time as well. Doesn't help me getting out of bed, but it does help me actually waking up. So, there is that.
That's fair.
Yeah. Jamie, what about you? What's been grabbing your attention?
Well, First We Feast with the Hot Ones interviews, it's absolutely fantastic. It is a great equalizer because you see people who are, actors or comedians or sportsmen or whatever, who are so used to press interviews, and it's the same questions every time, and it's in their head for whatever the answers are. And Sean Evans, who does the interviewing, is really, really good at getting the right angle for the right question and pitching those questions just at the right time, where they'll take a bite of a wing, and then the chili hits them, and it just resets their brain as he then hits them with the question. And all of the defenses, all of the walls are down, and they are just unapologetically honest and themselves. So it's a really great way. If there's, have a look through the list, and if there's someone you're interested in as a person, have a look at that interview, because you will absolutely guarantee to learn more about them. That's been the main kind of media thing that's been grabbing my focus. I've basically spent the most of this week. We were sort of preparing for what was supposed to be the heating engineer coming out on Friday to do our boiler, and then unfortunately my wife tested positive for COVID on Wednesday night.
Oh, no.
So all perfectly fine. We're both triple jabs. She's slight sniffles, but we are actively in different parts of the house. I am holed up in my office. My daughter's holed up in her bedroom, and we are still testing positive every morning. So we're all good from that front. But
still testing negative.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, we're still testing negative. We're passing the test by testing negative. But just because of that, I've been hiding out in the office and consuming media and playing games, basically. It's a way to not catch COVID.
Well, I'm glad to hear that your wife's okay, and that you both yourself and your daughter are not testing positive. That's that's good.
Indeed.
Yeah,
it's a testament to Pfizer
Science.
and Moderna vaccines. If you haven't got them yet, get as many of the vaccines as you are allowed to get, because they are amazing.
Public service announcement. Yes, vaccines are amazing. I mean, it was. So my dad caught COVID back in sort of November, almost a year to the day we got COVID the previous year, funnily enough. And my granddad was scheduled for his booster jab around about the same time. Well, actually, a little bit after my dad, after the sort of clearance period. So we did a lateral flow test, made sure everyone was negative. So same circumstances, we tried isolating everyone in the house, and it wasn't going to work. So same circumstances as the year previously. This time around, everyone was jabbed. Everyone was had the vaccine. None of us got it. My dad didn't pass it on to anybody either. And it's like, if you ever needed proof that vaccines work, it's right there. In a house of there's 7 people in this house, and 2 elderly grandparents, and my dad, stepmom, myself, brother, and little sister. One person got it, and a year earlier, with no vaccines, infected all 7 people. All 6 other people in the house. A year later, with vaccines, same circumstances, nothing different. Doesn't go around all 6 people again.
Not to mention the fact that this variant at the moment, I suppose November it probably would have still been the Delta variant, but for the Omicron variant is hugely transmissible. So for us to have managed to exist in the same house, let's say from Wednesday to now the Sunday when we're recording this, I tested negative this morning. So fingers crossed by tomorrow it's probably going to have pretty much run its course with her as well. So
well, even the Delta variant was more transmissible than the prior variants. Because we had original COVID from the November, whatever the variant was back in November of 2020, and then the Delta that my dad would have probably got in November 2021 was more transmissible than prior variants. So it's like, again, if you ever, I'm not going to get onto people who are anti-science and anti-vaccines because it'll just,
science works.
Science works, yes. I think we can all agree science works.
You are watching or listening to this on a device that exists because of science. Science is proven to work. Get the
down smallpox or polio or bubonic plague, pretty much. It's not eradicated, unlike polio and smallpox. But,
exactly.
It's pretty much not a problem that it used to be. All for the benefits of science.
As Jamie says, if you are listening to this podcast, you are listening to something that is proof of science.
Yes.
Literally, it's proof of science.
Talking of science, Mr. Few, what's been grabbing your attention?
Well, my week, busy week this week actually. A number of things that kind of sort of grabbed my attention. Shock news! I actually got into the Tinkerage this week on more than one occasion, and to actually do stuff other than trying to find something. So I actually kind of managed to
stepped in rather than just leaned in.
Yeah, I've actually facilitated so I can actually go into the Tinkerage now.
I did see a photo and I saw floor
and bench top
and bench.
Yeah, actually bench top, which
news.
did mean unfortunately that I had no excuse but to do some of the jobs that were around the house, like changing the our shower mixer bar, which was leaking, and we had a dodgy light switch, just loose connection inside, so it needed, thankfully, not didn't need changing.
So this is the prize then, or for anyone who's got it made it this far in this episode, is to tell us which previous episode you mentioned the buying the shower bar to fit.
Yeah, sometime in December. Yeah, early December. I'll give you a clue. Yeah. So that was a job. Actually, that was a job I'd been putting off because I thought it was going to be really, really difficult because of Limescale down in the southeast. But it actually went remarkably smoothly. Mostly, I had to redo the sealant, which I hadn't thought about. But yeah, that was easy enough to do. So that kind of stuff went well enough. So there was that. What else was there? So yeah, I'm not going to go into details. You two have both heard. But I had a brainstorm earlier in the week about a series of videos that I'm going to try and do. I need to do some planning. There's a few things I need to sort out before I'm up to kind of doing videos again.
Looking forward to these.
A series of videos. There might be some stuff coming out about that in the next couple of weeks. Possibly even a bit of a request to people to kind of for further ideas. I've got a long list, but further ideas may be welcome. May not necessarily get actions, but welcome.
I mean, in fairness, Andy, the idea that you've mentioned, you can you could literally build an entire YouTube channel just around that one, just around that post.
Yeah.
You could build
because of course Andy needs another channel.
Yeah, I'm not going to start another channel. Because my best hope of getting monetized is to stick with Tales from Tinkerage. I've got the subscriber count, just need the hours on the watch time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I shall stick with Tales from Tinkerage for that particular thing. Two things that I'm going to mention sort of in terms of sort of media. The first one, actually, this I'm slightly stealing this from you, Jamie, from a conversation we had earlier. Instagram channel, Michael Laws. Mike Makes Stuff. The link will be in the show notes. He's a game designer. Is game designer this right kind of
professionally? He's a game designer,
yeah.
But he also does commission 3D modeling work. And
and 3D modeling his thing. He's made some amazing 3D models, and he's got a large format resin printer. And he's producing some fantastic things that he's designing and then producing. So it's not just a case of getting something off Thingiverse or one of the other sort of 3D portal type places. He's taking it.
Photos of like designing, taking concept art, designing props and weapons from games.
Game style sort of weapons, bows, swords, things like that. It's pretty phenomenal.
I just had a quick cheeky peek as I was listening, and that looks
it's next level, very skilled.
Yeah, that's cool.
So
that's some cool stuff.
Definitely want to check out. And the other one, this coming Saturday, 22nd of January, will be the next virtual craft fair, as organised by Jamie Page and Dale Kirkwood. So I don't know who's going to be on this next week, but normally there's a good variety of makers from the UK, Europe and America, doing a variety of different things, covering all sorts of things from food, electronics repair, art, pottery, wood turning, numerous things. So I've got no idea who this is going to have on this next week, but definitely want to kind of look out for and watch.
It's generally either friends or future podcast guests who are
well, that might be one of the reasons why I might kind of sort of try and catch it and get a few more people for the list. Not that the list is running short.
Well, so far all of our guests who've been on have gone back into our lists of guests in the spreadsheet.
Yes, mostly.
Well, they've all gone back into the lists.
Oh yes, they've all gone back into the list. Yes, yeah. We won't say which lists or who. Yeah, because that would be telling.
I mean, Steve's been on twice. That's enough, Steve.
Yeah. I think Ali's been on 3 times. I think Ali has been on 3 times.
Ali's been on 3 times. Yeah.
We're not averse to getting people back. And in fact, I think that before we kind of sort of finish up and round off with kind of where people can find you, I did mention kind of in our pre-chat, and we've not something we've talked about, but I think we're approaching 3 hours, and most of us got work tomorrow, not a rest day. But I think I'd like to get you back in at some point, Cuz, and maybe with some other people as well, maybe for one of our group chats, because one of the things we didn't talk about is the
cultural diversity,
the lack of cultural diversity in the maker community. There aren't that many people of colour in making in the communities that we see.
Or any ethnic minorities, really.
I mean, as we've already had sort of chats about kind of women and non-binary, and we'll come back to that chat. But I think there's other chats too. I mean, I'll be honest. I followed.
Stepping into dangerous territory though, Andy, because we've done non-men, and then if we do non-white, we're going to have to do non-beards at some point.
Ooh.
I mean, I can shave, but then I'll just have Dale just spamming the chat with telling me how I look like a 12-year-old. I think it was today.
I think it's 12 and 13.
Yeah, 12 and 13. Yeah. It's the curse of having a baby face at the age of 33, and yeah.
There is a reason why I have a large beard, and that is because I definitely look like a 12-year-old girl without this.
Yeah. Well, I taught.
Yeah. I was going to say, having taught in my last school was a girls' school. I don't think even without your beard you're going to pass for a 12-year-old girl.
A slightly balding one.
Yeah. Well, you see, I'm balding. It's just in a place that can't be seen with a front-facing camera, so I can get away with that.
I think I'm at like a 5 head or a 6 head now. It's gone way beyond a 4 head.
Yeah, it's yeah. So yeah, I get away with that. It's just if I put the camera back here, it's like it's all gone, more or less. It's I mean, that's what depression and anxiety does as well. It's it's something that can have. It's not just an effect on a person's mood; it has physical effects as well.
Yeah, absolutely, profound physical changes. Definitely.
Yeah. So, and one of those was losing my hair in a place where if a camera is back, like facing the front, it looks fine. Back there, it's like, where the hell is all that gone? So,
well, it's not uncommon. Yeah, I mean, why did most male American makers wear baseball caps?
Yeah, this is true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On that note, where can people find you, Cuz?
So primarily, I'm on Instagram at Cuz360. Again, that's a throwback to when I originally started, but now in the maker world, it kind of fits quite nicely because 360 being all the angles in a circle, all the different angles of making, I have interests in all of them.
And it annoys the PlayStation players, so...
Yes, well, it funnily enough, where do you think it came from?
It's very clear to me as an Xbox player where it came from.
Yes, that's exactly it. It was, so Xbox Live, I couldn't obviously just use Cuz on Xbox Live, so I had to put numbers in. So I chose 360, and it's been my online tag since the original Xbox came out. It's been my online tag ever since that period of time. So we're talking a long time. And
the Xbox 360 was what, 2005, I think.
2005, yeah, around about that time. And I had it because 360 is my sort of gamer tag before the 360 came out. I got it from when it was announced as the Xbox 360. So just before it came out, I picked that as my live because that's when I was able to get Ethernet onto the Xbox to be able to play it on live, and then the 360 came out and I was able to again play on live. So yeah, it's a long time I've had that online handle, and I'm Cuz 360 pretty much everywhere. I think I have it all. Now, I can guarantee you now that I've said that, Dale's going to go out and buy cuz360.com as a domain name and hold it for ransom.
Well, yeah, the question is there a Cuz360 YouTube channel? And if not, why not? And if there is, when are we going to see some content?
So the YouTube channel does exist, I think. Or it might actually just be under my own name as it stands, because YouTube and changing my name, and was it actually it might be Cuz of Makes. I can't remember now. But I did set it up, and the phone I bought for the whole thing was designed like I was sort of gearing towards putting content out, and then the whole me refurbing the garage got vetoed by the family, so it was like I can't do anything about that. So there's limitations on what I'm able to produce content wise. So I was like, well, the plan of, this is me, this is my workshop, this is the type of stuff I like to build. It was like those were like the first 3 videos, and I was going to figure out the rest from there. All got kiboshed when the family said, no, you're not allowed to refurbish the garage. You're not spending that amount of money. I was like, okay.
That's a shame. There's no time limit. Yeah, there's no.
Yeah,
no
YouTube. I don't see YouTube somehow disappearing anytime soon. I don't know, being owned by the one of the biggest tech companies in the world, kind of makes it a bit bulletproof, and there's still content.
I mean, Google's an advertising company first. People forget that. They're an advert platform, and they're not too shy about closing down aging platforms. They've done that with quite a few things so far. So
Google Plus,
Google Plus. There was a handful of them. I can't even think of it off the top of my head now, but it's probably
I think with YouTube being the second biggest search engine in the world, I think we're probably good for a few years anyway.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a fair bit left in it, but I think it may well go away at some point.
Possibly. I think it depends on what Mr. Zuckerberg decides that he wants to do with his metaverse, whatever that means.
That's true.
True. Yeah, I mean, we could be on the cusp of going all Ready Player One, in the next year or two or whatever it may be, where everyone's jacked in, and the next thing you know, you've got a big old spike going into the back of your neck.
No, thank you.
Bring it on, make me a battery.
yeah, that's it.
Hey, who says the spike's going to go in the back of the neck?
We've all got to recharge.
Right.
Yeah. So it's but who knows where it's going to go. But as it stands, I do hope to be able to put content out there somehow, but what type of content I decide to put out and whether I deem it interesting enough, because I already bearing in mind I recorded about 5 versions of "Hi, this is me" and all the rest of it on my phone, and then I was like, I hate every one of these, delete. I'm never publishing them, So overcoming that anxiety of all of that stuff, I've got to work that out as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a hurdle. I think that probably keeps the number of channels on YouTube at just a silly level, rather than from a look, everyone absolutely has one.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, in fairness, some of the channels out there I've seen, and I'm like, what on earth? Like, how is this a YouTube channel, and how do they have 50 million people subscribing to them? Like, there's one that my cousin watched, and it was just some dude running around, and like, he didn't do anything. He was just running around. Like, how does this guy have 50 million subscribers and being able to give away stupid amounts of money? I'm like, what on earth is this thing? Like, and I mean, in fairness, that's one of the reasons I was averse to YouTube in the first place. I only came onto YouTube because of I wanted to organize the garage, and Google led me to YouTube, and then that led me down the whole rabbit hole of various different things, and then Woodworking UK and so on and so forth from there. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, you're just gonna have to do more podcasts and get more used to this kind of stuff, and listen to yourself back and get over that kind of.
Oh God, yeah.
Well, as John Williams has just said, you've done a podcast live now, so yeah, pre-record should be easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. However, something that you guys seem to forget is doing this live is a little bit different, because I have you two guys to guide me on that. And you are very good hosts, and so it's quite easy for me to be, despite the fact that I was incredibly nervous coming on, and like trying to make sure everything was right and all the rest of it. Almost forgot to plug the Ethernet cable in, so I was like, oh crap, I forgot to put. So all of this stuff, it was like, I need to. But being online with yourselves, it was easy because we went live.
To chat with a couple of friends.
That's exactly it. And as soon as we went live, we were already in the midst of a conversation halfway through, and the rest of the conversations just sort of flowed on from there. So it was very easy. Whereas being the person recording myself, and then assessing myself
and editing it and listening to yourself as you edit it. Yeah.
Well, there you go. I mean, this might be a good challenge then, because John's just said there that he's kind of thrown the gauntlet down. So maybe you and John should both do an intro, or pre-record a couple of intros for your own future channels, and then swap the intros. So you could edit John's, John could edit yours, and pick which is the final version.
That could be interesting. Yeah, I mean, we can. Yeah, it could be a bit of fun, but says the person
hiding behind the keyboard.
Yeah, hiding behind the keyboard. Yeah, I mean, in fairness, I have been on some YouTube lives as a earworm for some of the for Andy, Dale, Wayne, and JP. Was I on for JP? I can't remember, but back way back in sort of 2019 when I had my evenings free whilst I was off work with a bout of being quite ill, I was able to do that for those guys, and I was quite happy to do that. But again, it was just having a conversation with friends, and I knew the audience already. Whereas with setting it out for other people, it's like, there's other people, and
John has said his game. So.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted then.
There we go.
Perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
So
You heard it here first.
Accountability.
Accountability.
We'll get you both back on and find out how you're going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Whether it gets published or not, that's a different matter. There was nothing in that.
Maybe the four of us get together on a thing. We have a chat with friends. We just record the whole stream, and then you can just clip out the quarter that you're in.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I felt like I feel like I might be able to. I don't know. It's just a case of seeing where that goes, but at the same time, I want to be able to have. If I was ever doing the YouTube thing, I would want that regular amount of content out there to be able to say, and provide something that's different to what is already out there. Because, there's so many guys already doing great videos of various different things. It's me finding a niche that isn't such a niche that I can only do one thing and that's it. Because that's not me. I'm not a one thing person. I'm a person who does a whole host of different things. I mean, it's because I get, it's, going back to the conversation with Ali when they said about ADHD and deviating different topics. It hit home for me as well. It's
make a brain.
Make a brain. Yeah, make a brain.
Yep.
But that's it. Yeah, we'll have a play. We'll have some fun and just see how it goes. Who knows what will come up? But as I say, it's figuring out what I want to do and be able to actually put some content out there that is actually saying I want to inspire people, it sounds like very grandiose, but it would be nice. It would be nice to be able, so someone be able to say, "Oh yeah, you encouraged me to pursue this." And, I like being able to do that in the hack space with some of the kids and some of the people that come in, being able to sort of be a person who can have that enthusiasm and energy that just rubs off on people. Because when I'm in the hack space, I'm in professional mode. Almost. It's like I see it differently, it's like, right, this is what I need to do. This is my goal. It's professional, and it's almost like I'm wearing a suit and tie, and I'm networking.
To be honest, that's the trick to doing videos as well. In my opinion, it's one of it. It's having that kind of. You see this sometimes with people who teach. I've known teachers who kind of they can't. Socially they're awkward. Socially they may not want to speak out, they might not be very loud, but sitting in front of a classroom and something clicks.
Yeah.
And they put on, and for some people it's very much an act, but it's a professional act, and it's like teaching and acting. They're very similar in many respects.
Yeah.
And people kind of go, right, okay, I'm putting on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, when I was working in law, me suit and tie and all the rest of it, that was me work mode. I was very comfortable in a suit, so that helped. But at the same time, if I was wearing that suit and I was in working hours, talking to people in business terms and all the rest of it, no issues whatsoever. Take me to a bar and ask me to talk to the random person across the bar. Yeah, I'm running in the other direction. I like to stick to my own little bubble of friends, and that's it. And if there's an opportunity for a conversation, then I'll mention something. But at the same time, I'm almost always very, very nervous, and it's like, I always end up thinking, why did I do that, and overanalyze the whole situation and cripple myself with self-doubt. Because yes, that's my thing.
You are not alone, my friend.
I know.
I think 3.25 hours proves that you're more than capable. So I think on that note, I think we'll say goodbye to the folks that are still watching and listening. Thank you very much to those who are listening live, and
and thank you, Cuz, for joining us.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and I appreciate everybody listening for the 3.25 hours that they did, and to anyone who listens later on, thank you for listening. I do appreciate it. And if you could all give thumbs up to make us waffle videos going forward as well, please. That would be nice.
I'm not going to say no to that.
Yeah.
Right. No, bye, folks.